Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my big brother, Dagan Moriarty. Dagan, welcome. How are you today?
Yo, Dagan Nosebleed Moriarty. I should have told you guys that before we started rolling. I got a random out of nowhere nosebleed. I think I haven't got a nosebleed since college. So it's been 25 years.
You're like 11 in Stranger Things.
Oh, maybe it's my psychic gifts. Mm-hmm. Could be. I didn't think of that. That's something exciting.
Gifted, I think.
Yeah. You have some sort of gift.
Has anyone ever gotten a nosebleed for a podcast before? That would be a little bit of
Well, I did also today, but I started a new allergy medicine. Oh. So I know why this is happening.
It's not your psychic.
That's quite the coincidence.
That's really weird.
I couldn't even tell you the last time I got a nosebleed. Probably when I got beat up or something.
Yeah, probably when I got punched in the face.
Yeah.
That
would make sense.
Seriously, that's probably the last time I had a nosebleed. That would be unsettling for that to happen to me. I think that I was having some sort of problem. Micah Watson. Hello.
Yes.
You go back to you.
No, yeah, the nosebleed queen. A little fun fact about me as a child, I had such severe nosebleeds, I had to get my nose cauterized on the inside so it wouldn't happen anymore. So it's just one more thing that's wrong with me that I'll be passing on to the next generation, I'm sure.
Whoa. Did they put you out for it? Because that's like the little iron doohickey, right? They just did it?
Oh, no. It's a chemical thing. So the guy had what looks like an incense stick.
Okay.
And he lit it. They numb your face. But it's pretty horrendous if you smell it the whole time. That was weird. But yeah, it was fine. It worked very well, and I've been fine ever since. But occasionally still get a nosebleed for actual reasons, like starting a new allergy medicine that seems to be going a bit haywire. So
gotcha. It's no fun.
No.
Could think of more fun things than a nosebleed. Yeah, for sure.
I could think of 100 things more fun than a nosebleed. Absolutely.
Ben Smith, associate producer. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Not having any nosebleeds. Wondering why I live in a place where it's cold because I don't have to. The only thing keeping me here is my family, and most of them either work from home. I think my mom is the only one who couldn't work anywhere she wants to, and she could get a job wherever she wants to. So I'm really just debating life choices when it hits, when it's 30, still in April. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what I'm doing today. Yeah.
The weather over here has been up and down. Some nice days, some cold days. We're churning some kilowatt hours on the solar panels. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn, tell you that much.
I haven't seen the sun in a week.
It's cloudy here now, but it was clear the last few days here. Yeah, down here anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, my friends. Glad to have this collection with me today for another episode of Constellation. You know the topics if you've clicked on this. Someone actually wrote in and said that we shouldn't put the topics in the thread or in the title, and I was like, that's a horrible idea. But I do appreciate you writing it, because then this show isn't Sacred Symbols where people already know what it is. Why would you ever click on this? It's just Constellation episode 10, and you have no idea what we're going to say for 3 hours. I don't know.
It's a fun idea, but not the most practical.
It's one of those ideas people put out there, and I have to quickly put down. But that I appreciate it nonetheless.
Put the kibosh on it.
Yeah, no, you don't. There's just certain things people. I say this often, but people don't realize that there's a method to the madness. Am I a stoner? Yes. Am I tired? Yes. Am I old? Yes. But at the end of the day, I make decisions very deliberately, actually. Because people are like, why not? We don't have ad-free video on Patreon, for instance, just early access. And everyone's like, why don't you do that? And I'm like, because there's just so many reasons why. Please just trust me. Please.
I like your confidence.
Speaking of Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access of every episode of this show, of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, of Defining Duke, an Xbox podcast, of Knockback, and Nostalgia podcast, Defining Duke Ultimate, Sacred Symbols Plus, lots of different things going on. To those asking, I don't know exactly. I mean, it might be up by the time you hear this, although I doubt it. But around maybe the time you hear this is the live show. People want to know what's going on with the live show. That will be up for patrons, $5 and up patrons, in the coming couple of weeks. I talked to Dustin, and definitely within March, and I would say even like more narrow than that.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
Exciting.
Stay tuned. All right, my friends. Well, this is a conversational podcast, and it exists to talk about all sorts of different things. Micah, I want to begin with you today, since it seems to make the most sense to start with you. In this sequence, we start with breakfast.
Yes.
And that is your topic. So I want to hear about it, please.
It is. So breakfast, the most important meal of the day. We all know that. But for me, it is truly just very special. And as I'm getting older, I'm trying to actually examine why I am the way that I am, both positive and negative. Why am I afraid of escalators? You know, trying to figure that out so that I don't once again pass that on to like another generation.
It's on the escalator again. I'm sorry, that was a Mallrats reference. Go on.
Wow.
And so, but a happy one was me trying to figure out, why do I love breakfast so much? Because I'm someone who, I wake up every morning, I'm starving. Like, I'm starving. Breakfast is not a if we have time for it. Breakfast is a we're going to die if we don't eat something soon. And I start thinking about breakfast usually the night before. Like, I'll be laying in bed and I'm already thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast. And it's a little motivation, you know, to get through. And like, well, I guess sleeping. I hate sleeping. So that's part of it, right? Sleep is a portal to breakfast. And that's always how I've kind of rationalized it with myself, because I hate sleep. Otherwise, I would never be involved with it. But so breakfast is just really important to me and something that I enjoy so much. And I'm realizing a big part of that, though, was because as a kid, it meant extra family time. A lot of the time it would be, you know, we have a weekend that we're snowed in, can't go to church. So mom and dad are making breakfast. And they had very specific things we always did. There was this green glass bowl that they'd always use for the scrambled eggs. They had this, you know, specific platter they always used for the toast and bacon. I just remember those days so fondly. And I think over time, breakfast just became more than just breakfast. It was like the best part of the day. And as an adult, I still just absolutely love breakfast foods. Breakfast for dinner is just one of the best meals you can have. We don't have that very often, but it's something that when we do that, it's just extra special. It's like the highlight of my day. And then also going out to breakfast. That's a whole other category, but like going out to brunch, getting foods I don't usually make at home, like French toast and stuff like that. There's a lot. I get like genuinely excited thinking about breakfast. And it's my favorite part of the day. You get orange juice, you get coffee, like it's all the best foods. You could be sweet or savory. The options are endless. Like, there's just so much about breakfast that I thoroughly enjoy. And I wanted to know if you guys also felt the same, regardless of, you know, if you eat breakfast at the proper time. You know, I just have such a love of these foods and this whole category of eating that it really is like just probably my most favorite meal of the day. And if it was like a desert island situation, like you can only have one type of food the rest of your life, it'd be breakfast. It would absolutely be breakfast. There's like not even a thought about that. And that's why I wanted to kind of pose to you guys. Like, how do you feel about breakfast? The time, the food, you know, favorite places? I don't know. For me, it's just like an endless well of things to think about.
Yeah, I'm taking fastidious notes here, like I'm in class or something. It's very strange. Yeah, so the one thing that and I'll kick it over to the guys to hear from them. The one thing about breakfast to me is I'm just not hungry in the morning, and I never am. I've like you get hungry. It's funny. I make fun of you all the time. Like, you get hungry, like where you have to eat. I'm never like that. I don't eat for 20 something hours every day. So, and I'm just like, right at the time we're recording this right now, I haven't eaten in probably 15 or 16 hours, anything at all. And I feel fine. I'm not hungry. I'm not tired. I mean, I'm always tired, but that's the problem for me with breakfast, is that the food is awesome. Breakfast food is great. And I think you ameliorate some of my problem by going out. I mean, that's the thing, that if I go out, it's like, all right, I'll eat a little breakfast, I'll have a little diner breakfast or whatever. But that's the problem for me, is I'm not hungry enough early in the day, so that it just never really comes up, because I'm a big fan of eggs. I'm a big fan of French toast. I'm a big fan of, you know, bacon and pancakes and waffles, and I love corned beef hash and hash brown. Like, it's all good shit. Just, I don't know, I'm just not hungry when I wake up. That's my problem. Dagan, let's hear from you. I don't know actually what your situation with breakfast. My biggest memory of Dagan with breakfast is Dagan would make like entire bags of Lender's bagels at the same time, and then he would eat them, but then sometimes he would just leave them there.
Leave them in the toaster.
Because he would forget about them or whatever. So, and then you'd come back 8 hours later and there would just be like hockey pucks in the toaster or something like that. And our dad used to get so mad.
Yeah. Yep. I remember that like so vividly. And that, you know what though? That was a getting home from school, like an after school snack. Mm. Yeah. Breakfast, man. God, Micah, you unpack a lot with this one. I don't even know where to start with breakfast because I could start here. I mean, I'm like Colin. I'm just not hungry in the morning. So I kind of admire you, Micah, because you go to bed thinking about what you're going to eat in the morning, which means you're going to bed hungry. And I don't have the discipline to not eat when I'm hungry. And I know really because of my own rhythms, like a lot of the reason why I'm not hungry when I wake up is because I eat up until the minute I go to bed. And I just don't, that's when I really get hungry at night, like probably anywhere from 9 o'clock on. And I'll just eat. And I'll eat. Like fast food, burritos, whole meals. Like I've been known to cook steaks for myself and stuff like that. So naturally, I'm not going to be hungry when I wake up. But here's where it gets contentious for my life because Helene is famished when she wakes up in the morning. And I can't even think about food probably until late, like what would be considered like dinner, like somewhere between lunch and dinner. Like I'm not even hungry at lunchtime. I eat so much at night. And so it's kind of a bone of contention for our relationship because Helene's super hungry and I'm also not a morning person. So I love the idea of breakfast, but I don't want to make it. I don't want to be bothered making breakfast, which is the exact opposite of how I grew up because our dad, when he was home on the weekends, like breakfast was the event. Like you had said in your family, Mike, it was like fresh squeezed orange juice with the machine. It was apple pancakes, homemade apple pancakes. It was really like something like a sit down event when my dad was home from his tours, his firefighter tours. Then breakfast was like a thing. It was like an all morning preparation, sitting around talking while he's making breakfast.
Why was it that mom didn't make breakfast?
She just wasn't I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting.
That's what I remember is that mom. I don't remember mom ever making.
No, she really
not
didn't.
Even one time that ever. I don't remember it at all. And it's no offense to her. She makes awesome dinner, but she just wasn't a breakfast person. And it would always be like,
not
that's your dad's thing.
Yeah, that was.
I remember that always being like, that's your dad. What's what your dad does?
That's his deal. And
I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's funny though because you make a good point because she's not. She's a morning person. I wouldn't say mom was like a late riser or anything like that. So that's kind of interesting dynamic where they were just kind of shouldering the load together, right? Like dad handled the breakfast, mom handled the lunch and dinner. She was always good for those meals. Here's my thing with breakfast. For me, I have two kind of trains of thought on this. One, no better food combination than bacon and eggs. I don't know why that is. Bacon and eggs is delicious. But I think we have to break down the barrier of what we should eat for certain meals. Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner should be sort of recognized by the time of day, and that's it. Like if I want to have lobster for breakfast, it should be totally acceptable, right? And of course, like Micah said, if we want to have waffles and eggs and corned beef hash and all those things for dinner, have at it. Like we got to remove the barriers of what to eat when. And I'll tell you when I recognized that. I was in my early 20s, first job out of school. So this was kind of like the late 90s. Animation studio owned by a husband and wife team. She was of Latvian descent, I think. I don't even know if that has anything to do with it, but she would to the day she would have a Caesar salad with anchovies, like the whole 9 yards for breakfast. And I was like, that sounds actually delicious. And that's when I got turned on to the whole thing of like, you could just have breakfast for, you could have anything for breakfast. I'm a big cold pizza for breakfast guy. Half like 20-second nuked pizza, not cold. It's got to be like half warm and half cold. It's very strange. But those are my overarching thoughts on breakfast. But I agree with Kyle too. Going out to breakfast, whole different thing. If you're making breakfast for me and it's 10:30 a.m. and I just woke up on a Saturday, like a half hour earlier, I could make it work.
But here's the thing about going out for breakfast, in my opinion, and we'll send it over to Ben, is Micah and I have had this conversation actually where I think she uses the term brunch and breakfast like as a person who grew up in San Francisco, Arrested Development city, right? Brunch has a very specific definition that has nothing to do with breakfast as much as it has to do with the drinking. Yeah. Right. So, I don't feel like those terms are like when people say like I'm going to brunch, my idea of that is like you're getting tanked because that's what we used to do when we used to go to brunch. And that was the culture.
Mimosas,
you know,
Bloody Marys,
you're getting old fashions, you're getting mimosas, you're doing whatever and maybe you're having like breakfast food. Maybe you're not having breakfast food. It's probably at like 2 p.m. There used to be a specific place in San Francisco, but I don't know if it's still open, but if it is, 15 Romolo, it's called 15 Romolo, ROMOLO. That place was fucking awesome.
I'm gonna look it up.
And I used to go there. I think it was in Chinatown or near Chinatown. And they were just a little hole in the wall, but it was like excellent cocktails and excellent brunch food and all of that. And then I think I consider that different. And that's like a social engagement as well. Going out to breakfast is to me Greasy Spoon. Denny's and all that stuff's fine, but I'm talking about Greasy Spoon, local, hole in the wall, kind of dingy.
Diner,
right? Like a diner, right. And, or yeah, like Waffle House kind of situation. That to me is so appetizing that just some greasy ass eggs, Mary's Kitchen corned beef hash. Don't give me the nice stuff. Some fucking potatoes with a bunch of onions in it.
I feel you on that.
And just throwing that all on a plate. Maybe some American cheese on the eggs. You know, some onions. And like I said, I picked this up in California. It's a pretty common thing, and certainly in the Asian community in California, but in other places, is rice and eggs. Rice and eggs, man.
That sounds
telling you, it is just. What do people think? Like, what does that mean? Just replace the potatoes with the rice.
Love it.
That's it.
I love that idea. Unconventional. I like that, man.
It's so good. I used to fucking live for that. In fact, I used to get the same thing so often at a place called Arts Cafe. Might still be there. It's on Irving Street in San Francisco in the Sunset. I've eaten there probably. It's a little hole in the wall, literally just a counter. And if it's still there, you should absolutely go check it out. It's in my old neighborhood in San Francisco. And I used to go there. It was owned by this Korean couple. And I used to go there so often. And sometimes there would even be a line out the door waiting to get in. She would see me like knock on the window and be like kind of give me a thing. And then they would get it going so that when I came and sat down, they would just give it to me. Like what I wanted, which was a 3-egg omelet with American cheese, bacon, and onion, rice, toast, white toast with grape jelly. Great. They knew I wanted the grape jelly and, an orange juice.
Oh, that's
that was
proper
the shit.
hangover food. That sounds legit.
After I used to record Colin and Greg live at Kind of Funny, I would walk down there and eat early and that's what I'm saying. That was a afternoon breakfast. That is not brunch.
Yeah, but see, that's what brunch is back home, where we're not all alcoholics. We're not trying to escape California and its many woes, through mimosas
and your miserable desk jobs and
so we're just enjoying the fact that it's breakfast around lunchtime. Like brunch is just breakfast after 11 a.m.
Yeah.
The restaurant still has it usually till noon. And that literally is, I never knew that brunch meant going to get bombed. For us, it was just like, do you want to go get brunch? And it's a late breakfast before lunch. It's probably going to replace lunch because it's very heavy food.
That was certainly what it meant at one time.
Yes.
But it's, in my opinion, not what the nomenclature indicates.
Yeah, California's not real. So I'm sure to myself and people like Ben, good citizens of America, brunch still means breakfast around lunchtime.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it is. I hate to say it because I am very critical of California. I really loved parts of California. It's not, and aspects of living there, it's a really almost irreplaceable state in a lot of different ways, just in its beauty. The people are nice and all the rest. So I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to.
Plus, painting that entire state with one broad stroke is so wrong.
It's very hard, but I will say what I was going to say, and I would just kind of facetiously, is that I had my whole adult upbringing there, basically. Like, if you want to call it upbringing.
Really
my
did.
whole adult life, I lived there.
You did.
So it's actually, everything I see is through the prism of really a pretty one-off place, like the Bay Area. And so I have to kind of recalibrate still. Ben, let's hear from you. What do you think about breakfast foods? I'm curious to hear what direction you might choose to take this in.
Well, I very much understand what Micah is saying as far as when I say
dogs are barking,
brunch.
by the way. I'm going to go check this out.
When I say brunch, that's what I mean. But I mean, I don't say brunch because I'm not on Sex and the City. But
Yes, you are.
I do understand. Like I very much depending on the person saying it, I think of what Colin is saying is, people going out and they're probably going to get drinks, mimosas, whatever with it. But I'm not a breakfast person as far as time. I kind of relate to what all three of you were saying as far as like I'll eat the food whenever, or if I'm going out, I'll have it. But I do really like breakfast food. But eating in the morning actually physically makes me sick.
Oh no.
Because I think I don't know if it's the food that makes me sick or the fact that I'm awake in the morning that makes me sick. But either way, I just can't I don't know, I can't do it. But there is something that's like a magical touch if you go out to eat in the morning, or if you're already out somewhere or whatever and you want to grab, some really garbage. And I very much relate with what Colin was saying about, really bad diner food. That's very much what I'm into. That I can totally stomach. I'm fine with it. I mean, I might be sick in the afternoon, but I'm very much all about that. And I don't know. I'll eat cereal at night if I have any around, which usually
night cereal.
I'll go like 2 or 3 months. I'll go like 2 or 3 months where I have cereal in the house, and then I'll eat it at night, and then for the next 5 years, I don't have any cereal in the house.
Oh, you can't. No, cereal is a must.
Give me the top cereals.
It's a must.
Give me the top ones. Which ones you go for?
Well, I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, if I have, so if there's not food in front of me, like if somebody doesn't hand me food, I don't get hungry until 4 or 5 in the afternoon a lot of times. And then I'll eat then, and maybe I'll eat something, later before I go to bed. I mean, I'm a night owl, similar to you, Dagan. I'm up late sometimes because I want to be most of the time for work, but I just won't eat unless I'm starving usually. And I know that's surprising to look at me, and maybe that's part of why I've had weight issues, is because I don't have a steady time that I eat. I just eat when I'm hungry.
That's what they say, is that the routine is really important, right?
Yeah.
I've never had one either. I think that's why I also fluctuate in weight.
Yeah, routine.
Yeah. I don't have any kind of routine. I don't eat until late in the day, and it's usually when I'm like, I can't wait any longer to eat, and then I don't eat again until I'm hungry again the next day a lot of times. So, and it really upsets my wife, similar to what you were saying, Dagan, about Helene, with not liking, she's like, I made food. I'm like, I'm not hungry. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. Like, it looks great. I'll sit there and pretend to eat if you want me to, but I'm just not hungry. But Dagan, I don't know. I really do like different kinds of cereal. You asked what are some of the top kinds, and I don't know that I have an answer, because most cereals I'll eat. Like, I can eat something that's like all brand nasty with quinoa and little sticks in it. I can eat that and love it, or I can eat Marshmallow Mateys generic version Walmart.
That's the shit though. The generic Lucky Charms is the best cereal.
Yeah, the bag cereal.
Magic Stars.
The bagged cereal.
Dude, I'm telling you, the budget.
Big.
Yeah, dude. Marshmallow Mateys, like the Great Value Marshmallow Mateys, that shit fucking rocks. I don't know what Walmart's doing with that shit, but I've always felt that way, because I remember when I was a kid, Finest, which is not even a supermarket chain anymore on Long Island, they had their own, they called it Magic Stars, which was their Lucky Charms. And I used to prefer, my dad would be surprised, because my dad would love to save money. He's like, oh, you want to save 10 cents? Great.
I get the no.
But he would try to do the right thing and try to make me happy, buy me the nice cereal. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I want the shitty cereal. And so I totally understand you there. Cereal seems to be its own topic. It's such a deep thing. I'm with you though, Ben. Like, there are a lot of cereals I don't like. There are cereals where I'm like, that's fucking grotesque. Like very chocolatey or very sweet, disgusting.
Sure.
But I do like Lucky Charms. Well, everyone would say Lucky Charms is a sweet cereal. Of course, that's normal sweet to me.
Yeah.
So like anything in that kind of, you know what I used to love? I think it was called O's or something. It was like the O's with the oat in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Those were good. I used to love that cereal.
Those are good.
And then I've been talking about, Ben, and you edit the show, so I mean, I'm having some sort of saga, some sort of campaign with Honey Bunches of Oats with almonds, because this is a staple cereal in my life, and there are just no almonds in it anymore. I don't know where the almonds went in the Honey Bunches of Oats with almonds. And as I understand it, because I don't go on Facebook, but Micah was saying in our Facebook group, people have bought them, and because I told people, I'm like, I dare you to fucking buy a box of Honey Bunches of Oats, dump it out, and get all the almonds out of it. And I bet you'll find fucking like 2 whole almonds in that thing, you know? And people have been, lo and behold, this is a problem.
There's a blight. There was a blight in California, right? With the
is that true?
Go down the baking aisle. This is a several years in the making thing. Go down the baking aisle, get a little bag of almonds, you know, for making your cakes or whatever. It went up like quadrupled in price. But
they are very expensive.
I think the crops froze over or something. And a lot of them, you know, a lot of them are grown on the West Coast. So I think it had something to do with that. But it's funny that still try to make the product and charge.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like they should have made a new box that just said honey bunches of oats with almond.
That's amazing.
with less almonds than ever.
Yeah, it'll just say honey bunches of oats with almond.
That's
and then they just have a single almond. Right.
Makes sense.
So my favorite cereal, I think, of all time, and maybe part of this is the nostalgia or the experience talking, and maybe part of it isn't. I was at PAX East in 2011, and I was having breakfast, and Justin McElroy of, you know, previous video game fame, he's got all sorts of other podcasts going on now. I'm just sitting there, and he walks up to me and hands me this box and says, "Eat this, not that." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "This is the best cereal ever made." And I said, "Okay." And it's blueberry muffin top cereal. And I think, okay, so first of all, it tastes like a blueberry muffin top. And it sounds stupid to say that it's a hard cereal and it tastes like something that's not hard. But he just walked up to me. Like I was sitting, I think I was at the near the same table or event or whatever as him. But he just was walking around preaching the gospel of blueberry muffin top cereal. And just handed it to me. And then I tried it after that. And I think I had to special order it a couple times, just because I was young and dumb and thought, why not special order cereal? You know, you only live once. I think it's discontinued now, last time I checked. But that was a cereal that you know, it would defeat all other breakfast foods in general.
Wow.
But large, you know, talking breakfast. I love breakfast food. I just don't like breakfast time.
Yes.
Yeah, and that seems to be the consensus with everybody. I got one thing to say about that though. Like muffin, I hate that everything's the muffin top. I hate that because the bottom is the best part of the muffin.
Yeah.
And I always eat the top first and you save the bottom for last.
Why is the bottom better than the top?
It's okay to be wrong.
She has to have the...
It's the best part of the muffin. It's softer. You got the paper on it. It's so much better than the stupid top of the muffin, and I hate it. I hate that I go down the baking aisle.
Next time we're hanging out, if we happen to get muffins, you and I could this would be great. I could give you the bottoms of the muffins. You could give me the tops of the muffins.
I mean, that was a thing when we were kids. My mom stopped buying us Lucky Charms because I didn't like the cereal. My sister didn't like the marshmallows. So we would separate it out. And then my mom caught me eating just a bowl of marshmallows and was like, we can't buy this anymore until you decide to eat it like people. We weren't allowed to have that anymore.
There's a store here locally, and then maybe, I think it's a small chain that actually sell, it's like a bulk store or whatever. It's called a Smart Shopper. And everything's, you know, some stuff they have is more expensive. Most of the stuff they have is less expensive, and it's somewhat bulk. But they actually have bags of you can just buy pounds of the bags of the marshmallows that come in Lucky Charms and whatever. And I'm like,
very clever.
That is very appealing to me, but I think that's a very dangerous road as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then talk about favorite cereal. My all-time favorite is Honey Bunches of Oats. The original, not the with almonds. That's the favorite. The cereal I eat the most is probably Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then
classic.
One that I don't buy often because I know it's really bad for you is the Reese's Puffs. I love those, but I know that can't be good for you. You shouldn't eat that in the morning.
There's anything like Reese's Puffs? Similar to those?
That's exactly the one, my good man.
Just checking.
Mike, I have to ask you a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Good.
Yeah.
Because this is a divisive one, I think, and I can't speak to it. But as a breakfast fanatic, first of all, I have to say I had an epiphany about brunch, guys. Do you ever think of it this way? Brunch is permission to eat breakfast late. You could get eggs, right? Sleep in, get eggs. It's also permission to drink early. What the fuck? That's the whole conceit.
That's exactly right. That's why I'm so confused about where the confusion lies. Yeah.
Well, no, there's no confusion. It's number one, as if my parents needed permission to drink early, as if we weren't already.
That's true. If you're going to drink early, you're going to drink early.
If you're going to Friendly's for brunch, there's no alcohol at Friendly's.
That's a shame.
A lot of the restaurants back home don't have alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, you're going for breakfast and you're going to get coffee and orange juice. There is no alcohol
if
here.
Friendlies
like, that's
and
what it is.
Perkins, if they just would ante up with the alcoholic beverages. But Michael, let me ask.
You got to get your liquor license. It's tough.
You got to do, in these horse and buggy states like PA, we just got beer here in the supermarkets. Like, I'm in Philadelphia, by the way. It's like one of the biggest cities in the country. We just got beer in the supermarkets, 5 years ago or something. And what's crazy? You could buy 2 6-packs at a time. You could buy as much as you want, but you have to put it in your car and come back in. That's how crazy it is.
It's madness.
That's madness.
Yeah.
I did it today.
That's just the beginning of the madness of the liquor laws in Pennsylvania.
Yes,
but that's probably another
right.
discussion.
Ben could speak to this. But Micah, just
insane.
do me this one favor. You go to breakfast, you're a fanatic, you're an aficionado. You going sweet breakfast or you going savory? So you going pancakes, waffles, that sort of thing, or are you going to go eggs, bacon, scrapple? I said it. Not Pennsylvania people. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to do?
If I'm going out to breakfast, it's going to be sweet. It's going to be pancakes, waffles, French toast. And I say that because I make breakfast every day at home. I mean, some days I'm lazy and I'll just have like a toaster strudel. But on my average day, I'm making eggs and toast every day. So and that's because I want to be moderately healthy. I don't think I should have pancakes every day. So pancakes are like the special food. And actually, just another insight into my, mental health here. When I was a child, pancakes were so special to me that I said that the word was sacred and you weren't allowed to say it. And my family, they stopped saying pancakes for years. Like, you weren't allowed to say the word pancake because they were too special. It was kind of like the name of God. You weren't supposed to say it out loud.
Yahweh.
Yeah, you weren't supposed to say it. So my mom would be like, do you want to have, and she would motion for pancakes, or she'd say a different word altogether. Because if you said pancakes, I would flip the fuck out. Yeah, I mean, you can't say it. It was this whole thing that as an adult, I realized now, why did they let me do this? Why'd they put up with that? Why did I do
so
it?
Much power.
Why did I love pancakes so much?
Why does a Micah cartoon not exist yet? Why is a Micah cartoon not a thing? I don't know.
There's too much to unpack here. It starts with the bottom of the muffins. That's really where everything starts.
Dude, you keep talking about this. It reminds me of the Seinfeld episode about top of the muffin.
I hated that episode. The whole time they're talking about throwing out the stumps, and I'm like, I'd eat them. I would eat every single one of those.
Dude, there are 2 funny parts of the episode that I remember. Well, I remember a lot of it, but one that I love, and we say it, I think, on the show is, it's not top of the muffin to you. No, it is, because they're talking about the logo, and it has the exclamation point at the end of it. And then he's like, no, it is. And then they just cut, which is the funniest part. So there's just not even any response. And then the other thing I actually looked up the script because there's a whole repository of Seinfeld scripts. And it's when the woman from the homeless shelter comes into the restaurant or to their place. She's like, excuse me, I'm Rebecca De Mornay from the homeless shelter. Are you the ones leaving those muffin pieces behind our shelter? And then Elaine says, you've been enjoying them? And she's like, they're just stumps. So you just assume the homeless will eat them? They'll eat anything? They don't have homes. They don't have jobs. What do they need the top of the muffin for? They're lucky to get the stumps.
Classic.
That episode is awesome. By the way, if people want to go watch that episode, it's season 8, episode 21.
It is a fantastic episode, but very infuriating as someone who cherishes the bottom of the muffin bottom. But that goes with my personality. My favorite part of the Pop-Tart is the outer crust. And my sister would give me the crust off her Pop-Tarts.
I actually agree with you on
delighted.
that. I like that part too, where you just get a little bit of the frosting. It's kind of I love the pizza crust.
Oh yeah,
because you get just a little bit of the sauce and a little bit of the cheese, but you get I love bread, dude.
Yeah.
I love bread. You don't need to do much to it. You don't need to do much to bread. I'm just going to eat it.
But then to take it a step further, my favorite part of the ice cream cone is the cone. And it's really just, you can't just eat ice cream cones though. You can't just open a box of Keebler cones and start eating them. So you have to put ice cream in it. I don't think you should though. I think people would look at you funny. You say that, but you'd look at me and be like, what are you doing? So you got to put a little ice cream in it. But the best part is the cone itself. That's what you're after.
I agree.
So for these things that you like the weird part more, do you also dislike, do you dislike muffin tops, or do you just like the bottom the most?
The top is just, it's overrated. When the top has the sugar on it and everything, sometimes that's good. But it's just not as good as the bottom part. It's just not as good. And the Pop-Tart center, you could give me all the crusts and I'll give you the centers. They're fine. But like that outer crust that gets all crispy in the toaster, like that's the best part of the whole Pop-Tart.
Micah, in the Micah cartoon, you're going to ask your mom to cut the crusts off your sandwiches and then throw away the sandwich and just keep the crust.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
This is exactly
I
what's gonna
remember being indignant when Uncrustables were invented because I remember when they came out and I was livid. I said, this is like madness. Who is eating these? And I remember being given them at school and I give them away because I'm like, I'm not eating. I've never eaten one in my whole life because I was just like, the crust is the sandwich. Like, what else are we eating here?
Well, I remember when I was a very little kid, I would have my mom cut the crust off my sandwiches when I was in like, kindergarten or something, but I don't really know why. And then eventually I was just like, no, you don't have to do that anymore. I'm fine with it. Why did I have such an aversion to crust? It's just such a weird thing.
It's just the dry part of the bread where none of the existent, none of the condiment, none of the meat, none of the PB&J made it out that far, right? So you got to really
I love it.
like
I love it nonetheless. All right, let me ask you guys I'm just going to ask a few exit questions here. Eggs, of course. We have to talk a little bit more deeply about eggs. And by the way, I don't know if I'm sorry if any of this came up the minute or so I was gone. Just interrupt me and tell me if it did. But I went downstairs. Treble is just we say she screams. She doesn't even bark. She just screams. And she's screaming at the next door neighbor's dog and their kid, who she just cannot tolerate for some reason. And we can't say this to people. I'm going to say it on this podcast, obviously to tens of thousands of people, I guess, but it's hard to say. Is like Treble doesn't seem to like big black dogs. And it's true. And it's because she had some sort of weird experience with the big black dog next door to us. So she's actually totally fine with most other dogs. Like she's interested. She's very weird and squirrely, but she flips the fuck out when she sees a big black dog. And again, Curb Your Enthusiasm, when it reminds me of the racist dog episode.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just say that that's what was going on. I had to pull the shade so she couldn't see it's like, that's a child. That's our neighbor's child. You can't bark. Just scream at it all day. Just like a cute little blonde kid running around. I'm sorry?
When do you have to start paying Larry David royalties for how often you reference his work?
Yeah, exactly. Or just live his life. I mean, I'm wearing his skin. All right. So I wanted to ask about eggs. What our favorite style of egg is, and we can go around the horn here. I'll begin by saying I think you can't fuck an egg up, except for I would say and I know Mike will go into the fried egg. I think the fried egg is the worst egg.
Oh,
that's such a waste. It's like, why would you do this to an egg? Scrambled. I think overall scrambled egg is probably the best because I think you can actually. The thing about the scrambled egg is that it can come out a bunch of different ways and still be a scrambled egg. And that's not true with other eggs. Like over easy, over medium, over hard are all the same egg at different temperatures, right? Or different cooking levels.
Right.
Scrambled eggs, and I don't say this to be disgusting. I like cooking them mega slow, which is the way Dad does it. Like where you cook them almost on no heat. It takes forever to cook them like this, but they are so wet and moist when you eat them. And I like that. I like that. I don't want a dry scramble, but you can get a dry scramble. That's totally fine.
Sure.
So I think anything in the scramble is fine. Over easy eggs. Well, sunny side up eggs are good, but they're hard to do because you got to get rid of the white mucus stuff. It's just hard to do. I wouldn't eat a sunny side egg up personally anymore. I have, but instead I would go with the over easy egg, which is a sunny side up egg that you just flipped over and left on there for 10 seconds and then you took off. Right. That's good shit. Over medium, over hard, unnecessary. I would prefer it over easy. And then when you get to like poaching, totally fine with that. And then poached egg is awesome. And then 7-minute egg or whatever. And then you have the hard boiled egg. And that is also very good.
Classic.
So the egg is a really wonderful thing. And I wanted to go around the horn and see what you guys thought about it. Dig, let's go to you first.
You know what? Follow me on this for a second, because this was my first thought. You know those people that you know in your life that were like, I loved rare steak at one point, but I just can't do it anymore. It turns my stomach type of thing. Like their dietary preferences just changed over time. I can't understand the rare steak thing because I love a steak mooing all day. Like put it on the grill for 2 minutes, aside more than enough. But here's the thing. Used to love a sunny side up egg. They are vile to me now. I can't even remember.
Straight up sunny side up?
Sunny side up with the runny yolk actually makes me sick now. And I used to love it. It used to be my egg of preference. It used to be the way I would get them cooked at diners and everywhere I would eat. So the thing you say about scrambled egg, Kyle, is interesting because scrambled egg, I'm not a picky eater at all. I'll eat almost anything. If you overcook my scrambled eggs to where there's any brown. Same thing with an omelet. I won't touch it. Like a brown egg is an insult to me. I mean, it's like a dietary.
I totally agree.
It's a dietary insult.
Horrifying.
It's just, I will not. I mean, a little bit brown. Forget it. The deal is off.
Oh my God.
No, you won't abide a brown egg.
No, my God. Just the smell, and I could smell it. Even if it, like, let's say you make my omelet a little brown underneath and you try to present me the acceptable side, I'll know. I'll just know I'll sense it a mile away. But
yeah, I'm not crazy about omelets because of that. Like the omelet seems like a literal omelet is pretty crispy. I think what most people envision is a scramble.
Yes.
Which is what I want, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't really know that until I went to college and they had the little omelet stations, you know? And then they would make you your little omelets. And I'm like, holy shit, can you take that off the fucking pan already? Anyway, go on.
It's true, though. It's absolutely true. And you got to know at your various breakfast spots if they're going to be trustworthy for an omelet or not. Helene's the same way. She'll get an omelet and she'll eat it with a little overcooked, a little brown on there. She prefer it the way I like it, but she'll take the shot. You know, and she will eat it if they kind of leave it in the pan too long. But I'll tell you, I think I'm going to agree with you, Kyle. Eggs Benedict, poached egg. Can't do it at home. I never even tried. That's the best. Hollandaise sauce, delicious.
Yeah.
And hard-boiled
Hollandaise
egg,
is good. It's just mayonnaise.
Yeah, that's basically it, right? I mean,
it's just overbeat mayonnaise.
Right.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little herbs, a little seasoning in there or whatever.
Yeah.
Hard-boiled egg I like, but I think they're boring. I'll tell you what, though. Deviled egg. Delicious. Timeless.
Yeah.
Not a deviled egg guy?
No, because there's mustard in it, first of all. But then when Allie actually makes me some custom ones every time she makes them, she just sets aside a few and makes them. And I appreciate that, but it's good. It's just, I like hard-boiled eggs. I just don't think you even need to do that to it. Just
Okay.
eat it.
All right. Just keep it simple.
So, you know what's the best with a hard-boiled egg is salt and pepper. Like just dousing it in salt and pepper, literally every bite.
I like it.
Even doing it just every time you take a bite. Yeah.
Oh, Kyle,
I love that.
Egg salad. You don't have to put mustard in egg salad, right?
No, I love egg salad.
Okay.
Egg salad is dope. The difficult thing about egg salad is how much egg it requires. It's a lot. And it's not like it's a big deal. I mean, eggs are expensive, but even then, who cares? You know what I love is egg potato salad, which is what Mom makes. And that to me is really, really good because you get the egg and you get the potato. You eat it all at once. And you don't have to have 25 fucking eggs in here going. Or you probably need more than that if you wanted to really serve a lot of it. So yeah, egg salad's good. Egg is just a very versatile thing. But let's hear from Micah. I know how you feel about eggs, and this is going to drive Dagan insane.
Well, so this is an important part that this is not just myself. This is my heritage. All right. My parents actually met because of the way they like their eggs cooked. And a very quick story. My parents met in the Coast Guard. My dad was working in the kitchen. My mom came through the breakfast line and she said, I'd like scrambled eggs very dry. My dad heard the order and said, I got to know who ordered those eggs. He went out. There's my mom. That's literally how they met. Because my dad also likes very dry scrambled eggs to the point that my dad won't even eat a Cadbury cream egg because of the fake yolk in the center. He thinks they're just so off-putting. We never eat runny eggs ever in my house. My whole life growing up, I never had one. And my dad won't even touch Cadbury's because he thinks they're repulsive to have the fun color yolk in the middle. So growing up, it was scrambled eggs, golden brown is my preference, very dry. And then a boiled egg, you got to boil it until the yolk gets that cool gray ring around it. Just completely, you want that. And of course, a fried egg is what I make every day. Every day I make a fried egg. It takes about 6 minutes. You put the lid on it to make sure the yolk gets completely cooked in the middle. You don't want any runny anywhere. And it's got to be Tony's seasoning. Tony Shasheri seasoning in the green bottle. That's what my dad always put on eggs. And that's what I put on eggs every single day because it's my favorite thing. But no, eggs, they got to be dry. If they're not dry, I send it back.
Mike, I believe you. I believe all your food takes. This is hereditary.
But the thing is, the other thing though, when you mentioned steak, my dad is the guy who likes a steak cold in the middle. And that had the opposite effect on me though, of I liked steak well done because I was just so grossed out by what was on his plate as a kid that I was I want the opposite of what dad has. And so he'd take the steaks off the grill. I go microwave mine just to get it nice and done. I'm adapting. I'm learning to like food, like steaks a little more rare, but really mediums as far as I want to go. I'd still prefer well done. It's just not acceptable to order at age 30 anymore.
Oh, you think that? Really? No,
I mean,
you gotta be true
I know
to
the
yourself.
looks, but also you don't want to be taking so long at the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be the guy that like, oh, the food's taking a half hour because Micah ordered the steak well done.
I see. That's very considerate. So okay.
I'll just get something else.
Ben, what are your feelings on eggs? I want to hear your opinions on this.
It very much differs for me from. I think I used to love eggs, and I still like eggs, but in my 30s, I've developed a texture thing. And my wife mocks me and says, you know that children have texture issues and go to counseling for it. You're an adult man. You shouldn't have texture issues anymore. But I do nonetheless. And so sometimes I can eat. I mean, I like the way that any type of egg you make, I'll eat it. I like them all. But I think that sometimes I'll go and eat like, some scrambled eggs that are really wet. And I'm just like, nope, I can't do it. And other times I'll eat scrambled eggs that are really dry, which you would think if I didn't like the wet ones, I would like, and I just can't do it. And so I don't know. I mean, that's like a mental deficiency I have, I think, at times. But I like eggs all different ways. I like pickled eggs a lot. I know that's not really in the breakfast egg category, but I love pickled eggs. But I have one story briefly about hard-boiled eggs. I don't know why. I was with some buddies one time. We were out doing whatever, and we stopped at Sheetz and we're grabbing food. And one of the things they had on the menu was hard-boiled eggs. And I don't know why I'm at Sheetz. I'm at a gas station in the middle of Western Pennsylvania. And I decided, some hard-boiled eggs from the gas station sound great. But I ordered them, and they gave them to me, and they were still hot. Like, I don't know if they had microwaved them or whatever. They were prepackaged. And I thought, most of the time you eat hard-boiled eggs cold, but hot's fine too, I guess. And I took a bite of it, and it exploded in my mouth and left third-degree burns and blisters all over the inside of my mouth.
Wow.
So I have a little bit of they don't sell them at Sheetz anymore, by the way. I don't think it was directly because of me, but I did let them know after I recovered.
You should have sued them.
Holy shit.
I mean, I was like 17. I wasn't thinking about suing people. I was thinking about if it was going to be hard to kiss a girl with my blisters in my mouth. But it was insane. But so I still like hard-boiled eggs. I make sure they're cold before I eat them now.
Sure.
I didn't know about eating them cold. Like, we always ate boiled eggs hot. They'd only be cold if they were like at like a salad bar, and I'd be like, it'd be great if they would like warm these up a bit. But otherwise,
think just don't microwave them, and they're fine.
Yeah,
no matter if they're hot or cold, it doesn't matter. Just don't microwave them.
They will explode.
Don't do that.
They will explode in your mouth and leave blisters. I can tell you that from experience.
All right. I wanted to just touch on a couple of other accoutrements, and if anyone else wants to discuss them, anything they can before we move off this topic. I just wanted to give a shout out to French toast.
Yeah.
I think French toast is so good. And that's probably the breakfast food I actually will make for myself the most. Is back before, Micah and I were together, I'd make French toast probably once every couple of weeks or something like that. And I make just a gratuitous amount of it too, like 8 pieces or something like that. And I just go to town, and it's just a little bit of vanilla, obviously the cinnamon, the egg. It's just so good. Getting the butter, just tons of butter on the flat top, and oh god, the shitty syrup. Got to have shitty syrup. I don't want real syrup. I want shitty syrup. Do not even try to give me the real syrup. I hate it. It's disgusting. I want log cabin. I want fucking whatever. That's what I want. I want the shitty syrup. Don't even try to give me that real stuff. Take that shit back to Vermont where it belongs.
Oh no.
And corned beef hash. Just wanted to give again another shout out to Mary Kitchen's corned beef hash. Absolute staple. Absolute dominant food. I understand that some people it looks like dog food. Just get over it. Get it in the fucking pan. Get it so it gets that crispy, leave it alone. Like get it moving, but then leave it alone so it gets that crispy burnt bottom. Put that on your plate, top it with eggs and rice if you dare. A little bit of ketchup, maybe.
Just stop.
Oh.
Then you get that bad boy going. So I wanted to give a shout out to that. And then I don't know if this came up at all, but I had to give a shout out to sausage.
Oh, sausage for sure.
Sausage links are fine. Sausage patties preferred. Sometimes back, Dig, I don't know if you did this back in the bacon, egg, and cheese day. So for people that are not from the tri-state, bacon, egg, and cheese or BEC is a big part of growing up there. very similar to your Wawas and all that kind of stuff, or your other traditions and geographically. We love bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches from the deli. And every blue moon, especially when I worked there, so I would just be making these things for myself. I used to get in trouble for eating too much food when I would eat at work at the deli all the time. By the way, like you can't keep eating the bagels that we order in. Like you can't keep doing these. We would get like an order of bagels, and I would just eat like an egg everything. We only had like 3 of them. I'd just eat one of them myself. And but I would replace the bacon with a sausage patty every once in a while, and that's pretty dope.
Love it.
I mean, I want anyone that's got access to bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches, on your Kaiser out there, consider making it a sausage, egg, and cheese. I think you might like it.
Bacon or
That was my
sausage?
go-to.
Well, everyone just talked at the same time.
That was pretty amazing.
That was amazing. That sounded like everyone like we just cast a spell or something like that.
I think we did.
What all right, you go first. What did you say, Dave?
Oh, I just want to know if everybody, because bacon's a great point. Now we have the addition of Scrapple out here, but we'll just keep it bacon sausage. What do you guys do with your eggs?
Oh, bacon 9 out of 10 times, I would say. Scrapple's pretty good. I mean, I don't mind
about Scrapple.
Yeah, I don't mind Scrapple. I wasn't introduced. That is a very, very Pennsylvania and Rust Belt sort of thing. I never even heard of it until, and I might have told the story on the show once, when my friend Bryce and I used to go on trips with his dad every summer to go on roller coasters when I was a kid. We were like obsessed with roller coasters. We would try to go to a bunch of different parks, and we went to Cedar Point in Ohio, which was amazing. I mean, it's an amazing park still to this day. But we drove through and we stopped at this middle of nowhere like diner in the middle of the state, and they had Scrapple, and we were hysterically like, "What the fuck is Scrapple?" I'd never even heard that word in my entire life, and we were grossed out by the idea, and then we just went on. But then as an adult, I had it, and I was like, "Oh, this is totally fine."
Isn't that funny? We grew up 100 miles away. It's not far. But I never heard of it before I moved to Philly either. I saw it I think I saw it in like the little case at Wawa. And I was like, what the hell is this? I don't know.
Wawa Scrapple?
No, well, they had the prepay. The convenience store has a little case with the eggs and the packaged bacon and maybe American cheese and stuff like that.
That's fair.
They had the packaged Scrapple in there.
Yeah, Wawa's awesome, man. I love how they have the like kind of little accoutrements, for that you might need at home. A few of those. I love Wawa.
Oh,
good shit.
It's an institution. It really is.
And did any of you else? You guys were all chiming in as well. Was that at chimes of affirmation or?
No, I said what about sausage crumbles?
Yeah, that's good. I see sausage. Here's the thing, and this is pizza now I'm talking about, but this is what
that's
I think
what I'm
about.
thinking. Yeah,
is New York's pizza? You're eating legit New York pizza if it's sliced sausage. Right? Never would there be crumbled sausage on a New York piece of pizza, a real New York piece of pizza. But when you order a place like Domino's, you get the crumbled sausage, which I also think is totally fine. See, what I like doing, and I would do this with breakfast sausages sometimes, is gutting them. But then you can just buy the actual guts of the sausage, otherwise known as the sausage, without the casing around it.
Right,
and not have to go through all of that. But yeah, I like sausage crumble. Yeah.
Dagan, I think it's funny. You and I have talked before about how people always think like, oh, we're right next door to each other. But even though we live in the same state, we're 6 hours apart from each other. But so there's really not Scrapple on this side of the state.
I did not know
introduced.
that. I didn't know.
Yeah, there's really not.
Okay.
I'm sure you could find it, but I've been to a lot of little diners and big diners and whatever. Never seen it here. But when I was at Penn State, I got introduced to Scrapple. And I was just, somebody asked me about it in my recent mailbag about like how much I like Scrapple or something like that. I was like, I love Scrapple as long as it's like super fried.
Yes.
I don't want like I've had Scrapple that was made like not as cooked, and I'm like, no, I'm good.
That's a deal breaker.
But if you put just a fried piece of scrap meat in front of me, it's pretty good.
It's good, but you're right. It has to be cooked thoroughly. It's one of the few things I actually enjoy cooked thoroughly. But yeah, it has to be crispy.
Part of that may be the mental thing of knowing
what it is.
It's Scrapple.
What's in there?
Yeah.
We're going along on this topic, so I'll move on after this. But I just wanted to give a passing shout. We already brought it up at the orange juice. I just think orange juice is maybe pound for pound the best drink ever. And I used to mainline orange juice like it was going out of fucking style. From probably age, middle school or so. I mean, I've always liked it, but middle school, high school, college, my early days at IGN, and so on. And I only stopped when I realized how horrible it is for you. Because in my dumb mind, especially as it's just a skinny kid, athletic, I never gained weight or anything, so I never thought twice about it. Like and it's true. This is why I drink one Pepsi a day. and instead of drinking orange juice is because it's better for you.
Less sugar. Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there's less sugar in a glass of Pepsi than there is in a glass of orange
Is that
juice.
funny?
And I'm not talking about this was confusing to me because it's
no
literally
pulp.
just oranges, but it's bad. It's not like they're adding things to it, but it's just not good for you. But I used to drink probably shit, man. Ask Greg Miller because he used to make fun of me with orange juice and lemonade, Newman's Own lemonade. I would go through probably 2 cartons of each of those a week. You know,
my kids both hate it, Kyle. Isn't that the strangest thing? My kids
that's crazy.
Always hated orange juice. So
it's like it tastes like what I think the earth tastes like. It's like, oh yes,
So good. That is nectar.
This is the yes, exactly. It's like the good shit. You know.
I hear you. I used to like it too. I can't eat it anymore. That was the other thing too. Like I have to watch my sugar now. And as soon as that happened to me, they came out with Fruity Pebbles with marshmallows in it. My dream. It was my dream. I was like, why can't you mix Lucky Charms and Fruity Pebbles? What is the problem? Since the 70s, I've been wishing for this. As soon as I had to go off the sugar, they came out with it.
Fruity Pebbles are really good, man. Fruity Pebbles are really good. So shout out to them. And shout out to the cereals and shout out to waffles. I don't know if those have come up at all, but shout out to the what I would consider the dessert food of breakfast, but still acceptable to have as the meal. Love it. You know, just a little bit of waffle. All I need in my waffles, just whipped cream. Just give me whipped cream.
No, you need butter and maple syrup always.
That's fine too. That totally works for me. But I would prefer whipped cream. Yeah, because that's what I'm saying. It's the dessert food of breakfast.
Yeah. It really is. All right. Absolutely.
Let's move on. That's
Good topic.
That's a great topic. Good little leg stretch here. Now let me go back. This is the wrong email. How did I get? Okay, there we go. I want to. I'm going to go next. I'm curious what you guys think about this. I'm really struggling. I'm struggling in a lot of weird ways lately. Not like overtly. Not where it's like my life is fucking, a mess and falling apart. It's not really like that at all. But just little things and kind of becoming aware of patterns and ways of living and kind of just the rote nature of life. Like we live over and over, we do the same things over and over again. And I feel like I'm really struggling with disassociating myself from technology in any way. And I'm sad by this because I don't consider myself particularly addicted to technology. I consider myself a fairly standard consumer of modern technology. I don't think I'm on my phone an unusual amount compared to most people. I don't think I'm on my computer. I'm actually on my computer very little. I'm only when I'm working, really. I'm even in this room or playing the drums or something. But I've realized that I can't go to bed without being on my phone. Can't go to bed without having the TV on. Can't sit in my chair without being, my recliner without being on my phone. Can't play a game without listening to a podcast. Can't fucking pay attention during a movie. Can't do a lot of these different things that I used to be able to do. And I think this is the key component. And it's something that Dagan and I bring up on Knockback often is that and maybe a lot of people probably have the same myopia about their own generation and how special it is. But I do think there is something about people born in the 80s because they lived and remembered a life before this. And I truly think that a lot of people, even 10 years younger, certainly more than that, have no conception of what I'm talking about. But it's true. And so that is an important establishment for what I'm going to say here, which is, I don't think that it's necessary. My psychiatrist that I'm seeing now says, like, you obviously have ADD. I'm like, you're probably right. But I don't think it's that. I think in some way it's a cop-out for me anyway. I know that I used to be hyper-focused on individual things, that I would enjoy being away from technology, that I didn't need to be on things. I will also admit that when I got on the internet for the first time in the mid-90s, I was obsessed with the internet. And I will also admit that when I got my computer in the late 90s in my room, which was unheard of for a lot of people at that time, with its own internet connection and all of that I was on the internet all of the time. But I could walk away from it. I went and played hockey. I went and hung out with my friends. I went out. I did things. I'm not saying that that's necessarily what I'm looking for anymore, but what I'm saying is that I understand that if this reality existed when I was that age, I would have been fucked. I would have been done. Absolutely finished. Because I remember going to our beach house in New Jersey, like when I was in college, mom would want me to go with her and I'd be off the internet for 2 days and I'd be fucking losing it. Not like a child, just like in my mind, be like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do right now? And now I'm wondering how I can get to that point in my life. Like, I long for this disconnection, and I feel like we've gone too far. And I think that part of it for me, I guess my thesis is that because of this very unique time that I feel that I grew up in, I remember not only operating in that situation, but that situation being fine. And then it was busted up. So someone like Micah's age, who's almost 10 years younger than me, she really doesn't remember that.
No, that's not true.
Micah, you grew up the year AOL came out.
No, but we didn't have internet until I was like 9 or 10. Like we're talking 2000, 2004, 2005. Like we had a computer that was disconnected. Like we had a couple pieces. And I'm just saying, like, we did not have the internet until I was a little bit older. I didn't have a smartphone until I was 19. Like my life, I'm not one of these kids that grew up like with a tablet in their hands.
Well,
like,
I'll let you speak to your own experience. I'll let you speak to that because maybe you can puncture or already have punctured a hole in my thesis. But my idea is simply that there is this uniqueness to the so-called elder millennial, which I am one, and I hate that term because I feel like elder millennials have a lot more to do with Gen X, but really are kind of in this interstitial space, are kind of this like this really unique anthropological, this really interesting anthropological study into how things worked and the last time it worked that way. And it never worked that way ever again. By the time the internet became a reality in the early 90s, it was over. And nothing we did after that, as a society, individually, collectively, will ever represent that ever again. And I don't know if it's like a deep nostalgia, like a deep welled nostalgia for just a time and a place, but I just feel like it was healthier that way. And so anyway, I was curious if I could ask you guys how you feel about that, and like if you feel like you too are kind of addicted to technology, and if you're interested in trying to remove yourself and what you might try to do in your own lives to do that, to try to kind of maybe instruct me on my future travels through this hopefully more technology-less, or what I would say is a more focused reality. So Dig, let's start with you.
Yeah, man, this is a great topic. I mean, this is really food for thought. The more I listen to you speak, the more I realize I think about this a lot. Like probably every day this is on my mind in some capacity. And I think about it in relation to my kids. I have a 12-year-old and a soon-to-be 16-year-old. And you know what's interesting going on with that lately? They're both, our addiction to screens, right? You could take that back to people just being addicted to the boob tube starting back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, right? And then that became, as home video gaming especially became more of a thing, just being addicted to sitting in front of the screen, being, that sort of entertainment or digital distraction,
Did they call it the boob tube because it was like a replicant for your mom's breast?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I always thought it was like a boob.
No, I'm being dead serious. Is that what it's about? Like,
I always thought it was like
a boob.
A lack of intelligence, like a boob. Like it's there to mesmerize you and, put you in a trance and.
I was wondering if like that term, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that. I was wondering if that term came from the fact of like you're weaning your children.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way before. I never
park
took
them
it
in
that
front
way.
of Sesame Street.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Which was
that
my
just literally
generation.
came to mind because I never thought about that etymology. One second of where that came
I just
from.
Googled it.
What did it say?
It says it's an allusion to the idiocy of television. This is according to Wiktionary. The idiocy of television programming and the supposed audience for such, or boobs, and that televisions of the era use cathode ray tube vacuum tube displays.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. That the two part I totally got, but the maybe I'm thinking too deeply about it.
Yeah, but
first of all, my explanation too smart.
Colin, is that your reason for calling it a boob tube? It's
no.
It's a statement for your mother's breast?
Maybe, I don't know. I hope not. I mean, maybe, I don't know. You tell me, Freud. But no, I guess I love thinking about things like that where I never had even pondered where it came from before. I've said the term boob tube a million times, not thinking that, does it actually mean like boob?
Yeah, you could say something for years and then it just takes a whole new. I do remember you sucking on the antennas of mom and dad's old.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. Well, by the way,
What?
no,
it's. I don't think that's true.
That's made up.
Possible.
Anyway, go on. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, not at all. And then that sort of graduates to what we were saying with Micah's generation, all of us, with the advent of just the internet. And that's when I started noticing people, when things were new at the time, chat room chatting and online dating, and of course the advent of YouTube, and that sort of just kind of evolved now to having access to all of that and more in our pocket, on the go, everywhere we go, we have this thing. And I do know people in my life that are straight up addicted to I would say the phone, but it's really not. It's really what they're addicted to inside of that is social media in whatever capacity, whether it's Facebook or local chat, town chats, or the various social medias and Insta and Twitter and all that kind of thing. It could even be something like Etsy. Like people use it for whatever, it could be constructive. It's news, it's entertainment. People use it for sexual stimulation, whatever, But, so that's a huge part of it too, the porn sort of angle. But the thing is, it's like, it sounds like an old cliche, but I always apply to it. I always kind of put this application to it where it's like balance in all things, but especially with this, because the positive could start to feel like a negative. It could start to feel excessive. It could start to feel like too much. And I think about it with the kids because it's how they grew up, basically, with my two young ones. But you know what I've been seeing lately? Because I always have this thing of, I think there is an eventual natural tendency for most people to want to strive for some sort of balance. So I think if you feel like you're getting into too much of anything and it does cross over into addiction. But I think there's a natural human tendency to say, okay, this is too much and I want to step away from this. And I see this going on with the kids lately where they have access to all these things, but my daughter she went through phases where they wanted to go out to the mall. They wanted to go out and eat. That was a big thing for a while. The ice skating was a big thing for a couple of winters. They wanted to go out and be social and get out of that digital social media space. Now the newest thing with them, with the 15-year-olds in my world, is they want to go bowling all the time. So there is a natural tendency, although that stuff is all available to them, to want to go out and just be quote unquote normal, which is interesting. For most people in my life, I see that. I feel that for myself. When I'm in there too deep and I'm getting too distracted by Instagram or the Twitter feed, or it could be anything online. For me, it could be LinkedIn. It could be looking for jobs. It starts to become this rote, sort of robotic thing where you feel like you're almost losing autonomy because it becomes a pedestrian everyday thing. It becomes kind of like your way of life and it becomes a distraction. So I think at its best, I think it could be a distraction from being more constructive with your time or doing things that you should be doing or could be doing, whether that's exercise or professional development or actual work or taking care of your family or whatever that kind of thing is. But I think it at its worst, it could cross over to addiction. And I think where it takes over anything, just like an addiction to anything, a chemical, a substance, whatever. And I think that is prevalent. I wonder about, though, if that is people's main experience with it, like I'm having with my kids now, where even without the coaching, and even without the coaxing of like, come on, go do something, go pick up a basketball, go outside with your friends, take a walk type of thing, go in your room and read a book type of thing. I find that I don't even have to do that. They come around to that on their own, which has been a pleasant experience for me as a parent, because I certainly feel when it crosses over into distraction and then the entertainment or the news or catching up with a hobby or finding out about a new video game, the pleasant experiences cross over into making you feel like you're wasting your time, or you start to feel bad about yourself because you should get out from inside that screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. It's good to hear that younger people, because I see that with our nephews here in and niece in Virginia too, is that they have some sort of like need or want to be social with each other, to be outside and play, and to like, I don't see them glued, particularly the boys. I think Ayla more is like more on her tablet or phone, it seems like, but I'm around them so little that I don't anecdotally really know. They both seem to be very monitored by very careful mothers that restrict that stuff. And I think that that's pretty good. But yeah, I think my bigger concern is not only the technology, but how I feel like I can't absorb anything anymore. I have no attention span. And yeah, Ben, what do you think about this?
I go back and forth on it because on one hand, I feel that in myself. Like I feel that I'm not as tuned in or as hyper focused on stuff as I used to be. But also I'm older than I used to be. Like, different phases in your life or whatever. And I mean, I'm only a couple years younger than you, Colin, only a couple years older than Micah, whatever. So like, I don't know that between the three of us, really, there's that big of a gap. And I'm also like, my parents were 19 and 20 when I was born, and my dad's mom was 45 when he was born. So like my generational identity is all screwed up. I have no idea where I fit in with other people or anything. So, and like all my friends when I was growing up were 5 to 10 years older than me. So like, I just have never really felt like I fit into the category I belong in. And that's okay with me. I'm okay with that. But I just don't really know, like, are these because of my generation or because of my upbringing, or like is the way that I think about things? But as far as like the sticking on the technology thing, I think there is something there. I definitely think that as we've accumulated more technology and as the technology has been able to do different things, that our perspective has changed. But then I think about, like, there's that meme where it's like, a picture of a bunch of people on a train in the 50s. And it's like, look, just before technology, everybody just lived in the moment. Or, before smartphones, everybody just lived in the moment. And it's just a bunch of people reading newspapers on the train. So I think it's more about human nature, that whatever there is to distract us or to be addicted to, for lack of a better word, we're going to latch onto that. And there may be some people who don't because of their personality. I mean, I look at my kids, they're 7 and 9. They're very close in age. They've had almost all the same exact experiences their entire lives. And one of them is perfectly fine. I mean, he loves playing video games and stuff like that, but he'll read a book or do some crafts or like go out and play in the yard and be fine. And the other one will do those things, but he's so incredibly hyper focused on, I want to go watch TV. And we let them watch TV very little, but like he's so incredibly focused on wanting to do that. And they're only 2 years apart and have had very similar experiences. So I think that there's something there about their personalities, or they're like something intrinsic in their mind that you can't point to. This is why this one's different than the other. There's birth order studies and all that kind of stuff. But I did when I was doing my master's, I wrote a paper. I think it was published in one of the higher ed magazines or something, but about millennials, and because it was about college students, and my master's was in higher education, and just about how technology was going to affect millennials and stuff. And this was before the term Zoomer, I think, even really existed. And it's funny to think about that. And I probably have a copy on some hard drive on an old laptop or something, but I haven't read it. But I remember some of the research then, and I'm like, well, that's way outdated now. Like, that's not what kids these days are like at all anymore. And so, it is interesting seeing how technology changes the way we think. I used to be an avid reader, and people would tell me, like, why do you waste all your time reading? You could be out in the yard playing. And I'm like, now I'd kill for kids or whatever to go read instead of doing whatever else they're doing. So I don't know. I think there is a problem, but I'm not sure if the problem is technology or if the problem is something that has, for lack of a better word, evolved in us as humans over the years, that we need to be tuned in, like to be distracted by something rather than being in the moment. And maybe being in the moment, like I'm sure if you go back to, pre-industrial times, there was something then that they were like, why is that guy just obsessed with gathering sticks? Like he could just be sitting here having dinner with us, like I don't know obviously what that was, but like I think for every generation, for every set of time, there's something that people look at as the new thing that's taken away everybody's attention. And I don't know if it's about that thing. I think that thing obviously can be harmful in different ways or helpful in different ways. But I'm pretty sure that it's more about who we are as people rather than what we have in our environment. Primarily. obviously those things affect it, but I'm not sure that that's the thing. But I agree with what Dagan was saying about kids wanting to, and I keep saying kids, it's not a derogatory term, it's just, children wanting to go back to more analog things. And I'm even thinking about like, I say new, it's probably a 10-year-old fad by this point, but like the new thing is for everybody, oh, I want to listen to records, to actual vinyl because it's better sounding. And it is, but like there's something very much different about listening to records than about pulling up Spotify on your phone and just tapping a button and hearing the song through your headphones. So I think we'll always have that desire to go back to a time that was before now and experience a different type of technology. But no matter like what you're looking at, technology in some way, shape, or form has always distracted us. And whether that technology was a smartphone that could tell us anything we want in the blink of an eye, or literally the printing press, I think there have been reasons to be cautious and limit our time with it. But again, I can't figure out my own mind, so I certainly can't figure out the world's issues. But I just don't think it's the thing. I think it's the person. And by the person, I mean all of us.
Well, I agree with you in some sense that I think it's all of us, in that you were talking about the evolution of these different things. I think it's a lack of evolution in us to have the tools necessary to know what to do with all of these flashing lights around us. I think that that's a big part of it. I'm surprised that there's not more study that I've seen into just the natural way we live today and how fucked it is compared to, or it's not even fucked. It's because that's like a value judgment. It's just how different it is. And just the ideas of boredom and engagement are totally out of whack. Instant communication. I was reading a poll, actually. It's not, I guess it would be a poll. It's a study showing over time since the 80s. I guess they asked kids, teenagers, how do you describe like how often you see your friends? And it was something like 50-something% of kids in the 80s and 90s described them seeing their friends most of the time or most days or something like that. And that's down to 25% now. So half as many kids say that they see their friends. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessary or whatever. I'm like asocial too. I'm not crazy about that stuff. I've always kind of been more of a loner. I've had my friends or whatever, but it just goes to show you that like actually there are really material changes that are disconnecting people from each other and causing distraction. And I do think a lot of it is just us being confused, not really knowing what to do. What do you do? We are biologically identical to the people 500 years ago. I mean, there's really no difference between us. If you took one of them and put them in this situation, they would be probably a panic attack and die. They wouldn't even know what to do. They would have no concept. If I just took them and put them in this room and just was like spun them around, be like, what do you think? They'd have no concept. They'd have a million different questions. Nothing in here. Like maybe they would see my guitar and be like, oh, it's like a lute or some sort of futuristic string instrument. And that might be the most identifiable thing in here. So I can't help but think about that and how it's addled my own mind, but also how I agree with you, Ben, that it's not necessarily the technology, or it's not been all technology, because the internet is a product of the 80s and Usenet and all of that. Obviously, like dial-up is really a product of the 90s and cable internet in the late 90s. And we had chat rooms and we had forums and we had instant messaging, and it was still quaint. It was all still quaint. I actually think the smartphone is the thing that, and I think a lot of people would agree that fucked everything up. But Micah, what do you think about this topic?
Yeah, so I was glad you picked this, because it is something I've been actively working on in my own life, is to not be so, engrossed in my phone. Because, and the thing I took, issue with it, like at the outset, was when you say like, I don't remember a world without technology. And like for me, like I'm 29 years old. And that's just not true. I remember when we got my first computer. I think I was in second grade. And we were gifted an old computer from my uncle. We didn't have internet or anything for several years after that. But we would end up, it was just like we played computer games on it that they had gifted us. And that was the extent of the computer. And we took typing classes at school starting in second grade. And I was horrible at it. I hated type to learn. It was my worst class. I didn't learn how to touch type till I was an adult. So for me, it's like, yeah, I remember technology like when it first started to get into our lives, and we didn't have internet until I was older, and we had dial-up for a very long time because I lived out in the countryside. We didn't get DSL, I think, until I was in middle school. So I do, distinctly remember this being very different. I remember when I got like my Facebook account in high school, and that was what kind of started like, oh, you're talking to your friends after school, or the Yahoo Instant Messenger, and you're setting up your away message and everything. Like those things I remember being the start of me spending more time on the computer, because it was me talking to my friends after school because we didn't have cell phones yet. And it wasn't until we did get like cell phones and we're texting all the time. Although I couldn't really afford it because I had a very budget phone plan. So I could send, a couple texts a day, and then I'd have to be like, I can't text you anymore. I'm going to run out of minutes for the month. We can't buy anymore. I remember like one kid had an iPhone in the whole school. Like they just were very expensive for where I lived. So for me, my problems with technology didn't start until really the pandemic and working from home and feeling so disconnected from my family that they all exist in this little phone. Like I can't see them for a week at a time. I'm working from home in a studio apartment, and I'm just so disconnected from everyone in my life. But this little box is where they all exist. And that's where it started for me, of spending like way too much time on Facebook. I'm not the person who's posting constantly to try and get likes. I'm just interacting with my family and friends because I don't see them. And I have been actively working on that these past couple months, of disabling more notifications. Like I don't need to know every time someone messages me or stuff like that. Like I'll check it when I'm consciously aware that I want to check it, and not to get rid of this like notification banner, right? So doing things like that has helped. But the biggest thing for me, and like Ben mentioned, is getting back into reading, because I used to be like an absolutely like just read every single day. And that was my biggest thing when I was a kid, because we didn't really have much money. So what else were you going to do? But getting back into that has been huge for me. And just getting back into being entertained by something that's not a screen. In a very roundabout way, though, I ended up feeling like I was spending too much money on books. So then I dug out the Kindle that I had and never used, got a library card so I can rent ebooks. And even though I'm using a screen again, it's one of those, the beauty of like a Kindle device, there's no notifications. Because I was trying to figure out, like, why am I just not distracted when I'm using this? Like, what is it? Is it just that it's scratching the part of my brain that says I want to look at a screen, so I get to read a book and look at a screen? But the reality is that, not reading on your phone, like there's no emails coming through. There's not even a clock on my Kindle screen because I turned that off. Like it really is just me reading my book, and I'm not getting distracted by emails or texts or anything. And it's been like really helpful. Like I don't want to sound like I'm, like hyperbolizing here, but it's been a dramatic difference in how I use technology in my life. I read before bed every night now because the book light was annoying. Like I got the book light. I was like, I'm going to do this and read in bed. And it was just frustrating. And I hated it. And now I have the Kindle, and every night before bed I read. And I wake up in the morning and I read. And I bring it on trips with me. Like it's been fantastic to get me back into reading. It's a piece of technology, but it's something that for me, the biggest problem was the social media aspect of it. And also working from home, just feeling like you're always working. I'm, riding my exercise bike and I see an email come through and I'm going to answer it. And it's really hard to not do that. It's really hard to say I deserve 30 minutes to not work. But when you work from home and don't have set hours, it's like, when's the off button? When do you really say I'm done working for the day? Like I'll see an email come through at 10:30 at night and I'm like, I should just answer this. And it's things like that I'm trying to not do. I am trying to give myself more of a schedule so that I don't feel like I'm constantly on call almost. Because that feels like the biggest thing. I mean, and Colin will certainly understand that. Like you get an email at 11 at night and you just want to handle it. Because like, I don't want to sit until tomorrow. But the reality is that
I'll just think about it
till tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just think about it until it's done. I've always been like that. Like that's why I could never really relate to people. Like I know Chris has really a hard time with email and all that. And I'm like, I hate getting email and it annoys me, but I deal with it. It's not like the end of all things for me. And I would rather just get it done with. Yeah, you're right. I'm never off. So I always just consider myself both in a state of working and not working. And that's fine. That's just the lives we've given ourselves, or I've given myself anyway. But Yeah, I think a big thing is I'm weak. Like I don't know what to even do with myself. And I know that like it requires change, and change is hard. And I also think I try to justify it by being like, you're not really that bad. Like when I go to family events, everyone's like glued to their phones
That's a
at
thing
different
now.
times.
It
And
really
I'm
is.
not. I'm like really present. Like there are times where I'm actually like pretty present. And no, that's actually one of those times is I'm not on my phone really at these family events. And I that's why I like going for walks with the dogs, because and I get so mad at Rush. People are like, why are you so fucking lazy? You are a Boston Terrier. Why are you so lazy? And because I would go for walks, I would walk as much as you wanted because I like just being out and about. And I just feel like I'm kind of free. And that's what I love about the pool in the backyard too. And we're opening it next month. Exciting. You know, I probably won't be able to use it till May realistically, although we have the heater now, so maybe we would be able to. But I love being back there because I just am disconnected. Can't bring my phone into the pool. Not going to do that. So I'd bring books out, and that's when I was reading books because again, everyone was saying, and I've said this in the past, I too was a really voracious and hungry reader, but it's been so long that it's almost disingenuous to even say it was recently because it hasn't been. And getting into the pool, that's when I read like just 5 or 6 books last spring and summer, just in succession, because I was out there floating around with nothing to do. But it was nice, just staring at the sky. But it was nice being disconnected like that. And I don't know. I don't. It's a matter of being careful what you wish for and ask for. It's just I think that we don't understand that we live in a very seminal time that is challenging our very conception of the limits of technology and ultimately how we're going to fuse with it.
Yeah.
And which is going to happen in the coming decades, and that it's this inexorable thing. And I'm a little scared of it, and I'm a little scared of my own wherewithal to resist it. And again, I'm not so upset about, I was the guy on GameFAQs message boards all day in 1999. It's not like I was like doing, I also went out with my friends, like I said, and played and did this, that, and the other thing. But I always had an online presence, and I was always online. But what I'm afraid of is how it is just so, that was a choice. You'd go to the computer and you'd sit there and you would do it. And now I just feel like it's too challenging for me to like play Wild Arms 2 and just look at Wild Arms 2. I have to be listening to a podcast, and then I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to hear something and I'm going to look it up. And then I'm going to find myself on YouTube, and then I'm going to look up at the screen. It's been paused for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my problem is I feel very unfocused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West.
I mean, for me, like it really is just forcing yourself to do it. Like not feeling like I have to multitask. I don't have to maximize my time with hobbies. Like it's one of those, like there's a point in time where it felt like Ben had said, people can say like, why are you reading all day? And people, acting like that's a waste of time. And it's like, it's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun. And taking that back has been fantastic for me. But it's extremely relaxing. It's calming. But also, yeah, playing a video game without listening to a podcast, watching a movie without going on my phone the whole time. Because I think that is like one of our worst things, like Colin and I both, is just the distraction of, we're watching a movie together. And, like sometimes Colin will like play a game of chess during the movie. And it's like, but you're not watching the movie with me. But we both do it. Because then I'll be like, well, he's on his computer. I'll just check what's happening on Twitter real quick. And then we both haven't watched the movie in 10 minutes.
It's so crazy that you guys say that. But like, I've never been a guy to multitask. I don't think Colin's always laughed at me for saying this, but I don't think I've ever been smart enough to multitask. Like I have to be on one thing at a time. But I'll tell you, I don't go to extremes like Colin does with the doing several things at once. But I'll tell you something I've been noticing in the last couple of months. So I'm so certainly not immune to any of this, is that I'll put a movie on or a TV series, whether it's on HBO Max or Disney or Netflix or whatever, and I'll start to watch it and I'll fast forward through like the opening flying logos or the opening credits or even like a conversation scene that's not particularly stimulating or funny or action packed. Like I'll take little like minute and a half increments to just bump up the play button to pass that stuff. I've never done that before. And you know what? This is the thing I wanted to ask you guys about. It's such a kind of a contentious thing because I think having these powerful computers in our pockets and access to all this information and social media and distraction, it could be good on one hand, right? It's because it's in its best form, right? On its best day, it's education, it's news, it's access to entertainment and connecting with other people and hobbies and interests and commerce and all that kind of thing. But I wonder for myself, and I have to kind of put I got to walk the walk. I can't just talk the talk on this, but I do have this idea if we could just keep the time limited, right, somehow, and use social media or our devices in general on a specific schedule each day, like developing the discipline to make it more of a ritual or a reward instead of this habitual thing, which I'm certainly guilty of, where it's just like you dip into your pocket and you pull it out almost like an involuntary reflex. It's almost like a zombified thing where it's like it just becomes this rote thing that you're used to doing. I'm going to check my Twitter feed. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it almost reminds me of when I was a smoker and I would go outside from my job and take a smoke break. And sometimes I'd be, a quarter way through the cigarette. I don't even know if I'm enjoying this. It's just like, it just happens to be my routine now. It's a ritual in a bad way. It's a habit. And sometimes I would enjoy it. But that's the thing. I wonder if we could just narrow it down to a specific time of day and almost treat it like, okay, I'm going to take this hour to check my Twitter feed or my Instagram and enjoy some artwork or interact with somebody on Facebook or something, or just enjoy some websites, whatever, wiki, whatever. I wonder if we would enjoy it more then, because how much do you enjoy it when you're on it 17 hours a day? Like I know some people are. They're on the beach, they're on it. They're in the restaurant, they're on it. Family event, they're on it. Backyard barbecue, they're on it. Like ball game, watching a movie in the movie theater. Like it's like, how enjoyable can it be if that's all you do? So I wonder if we just turn it back into something that, I don't know, that it becomes more of a rarefied experience. Like, I guess it would be like almost like treating it like something you don't immediately have access to, like going to watch a movie on an IMAX screen. Like we have to get in the car, we have to get there, we have to buy a ticket, like almost like treating it like we don't have 100% 24/7 access to it, and just return to actually enjoying it rather than being addicted to it. That seems like a good mentality to adopt. But I do think it's the Wild West, and I do think we're trying to figure it out. And I love what everybody said, specifically what Ben was saying about it's always been something, like that old chestnut of like, well, it's always been something for people to reckon with. But I'll tell you, like I do find for myself that I wonder how much I'm enjoying it when I do it. Like what percentage of my interaction with my phone am I actually enjoying, or is it actually constructive in some way as applied to just communicating with family or doing something with work or job opportunities or something? I'm not sure, but I do find also like flying back and forth to Houston, I don't want to buy the in-flight Wi-Fi. I don't even want to watch the movie. Like I brought a book. I brought an Akira Kurosawa book that I've already read. It's just like, it's going to be, I love talking about reading because it does seem like the antithesis. It's like, I'm just going to enjoy some time to decompress. And I do wonder also, like, just referring to it as getting away from it and something where we have to decompress, or it's almost like something that we're compelled by, but also repelled by at the same time. It's a really interesting thing that I have to get away from this thing. The idea of I got to go read, or I got to go take a walk, or walk the dog, or play with the kids. Like it's like it doesn't have to be negative, but I do think that's true. I do think we're trying to figure out how to acquire that sense of balance with it, because it is new and it is powerful and it is exciting, and it does give you it could give you anything, whether that's an endorphin rush or whatever that is. It's an interesting conversation. We could go on this for all day.
For sure. I think another thing that I'm compelled by is just instantaneous information. As someone who's always loved the news and always loved politics and always loved sports and always loved these things, the days, actually I was saying it to Micah a few days ago, like who the fuck, actually we were saying it in when we were in Houston, because we were watching SportsCenter in the hotel room, and I'm like, who the fuck watches SportsCenter anymore? I mean, why would you ever? I loved SportsCenter for 20 years
Me too.
of my life.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched SportsCenter in years. Why would I ever sit there and watch that when I can just instantaneously not only look up the score, but get highlights and probably even pirate the entire game if I wanted to. Nonetheless, I could have watched it live on any of the official apps and all of the rest. So that's a big thing for me. And I must admit, because I'm always looking things up during the shows and writing notes. I like what people say. Maybe that is my ADD kind of mind, but people say things and I'm like, oh yeah, I should look that up. Is that true? Or let me get more information on that or whatever. I'm always doing that. But part of my routine right now, as I'm doing the shows the last few days, is checking Twitter every 5 minutes to see if fucking Aaron Rodgers signed with the Jets. And that's the honest to God truth. And I think every Jets fan in the world is doing that right now. That wouldn't even been an option for us. We would have literally had to have wait. Maybe we would wait and it would be on the 11 o'clock news one night, or we would see it in Newsday the next day, or maybe on talk radio, sports radio. But now we're all going to know immediately when they announce it, and we're waiting for it. And that the waiting is not just waiting. Now it's checking.
That's understandable though, because that's authentically the best way to get news like that nowadays. So that's a positive way to take advantage of the technology rather than, abusing something or just using something to the point of just rote zombified habit, which I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I have a specific person in my life who I know is really addicted to the phone and that 24-hour news feed and the social media aspect of it. And it's sad because it's that person's only hobby that I know of. Like, they don't even try to, in retirement, like find something else to enjoy, try just even like divide your time, like use that for a certain amount of time a day and then, go fish or start golfing or whatever it is. And not in a judgmental way, but more of a way of like sitting on that thing at basically every waking minute of your day when you're not asleep. How enjoyable can that be? I'm not sure. It's that old thing. Like I loved skateboarding, but from the time I was 15, I had to balance that with other aspects of my life, school, working, college, eventually a career. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how enjoyable is it if you have 24-hour access, unfettered access, and, it just becomes indulgent to the point of miserable, I think, almost. But maybe that's just my own personal take. Maybe that's not everybody. I don't know.
Well, it's also the idea that and this goes back to what I was saying with Ben, was like the evolutionary nature of we're not distant enough from any of this to our bodies to have even evolved or understood how the different ways
I love that.
Natural selection or whatever would net through this. We are basically equivalent to what the Greeks would have looked at as oracles. We know everything. Like it's like an unthink. That's what I'm saying. You take one of those people and you're like, I know everything you've ever wanted to know is on this device. Straight up. There's nothing you could ask this thing that it's not going to know. There's nothing they'd be like, oh my, they would worship it as a god. Right. And it's that whole notion. So the thing is that I can. See, again, it goes back to my own personal weakness. The idea of just disconnecting and being like, it doesn't matter. It's very hard for me. Like, and what's funny is that I think a lot of people are they're distracted by a lot of different things on their phone, but I'm not. I'm actually distracted by like 2 or 3 things all the time, which is, or the whole time I'm on the phone is, I don't post on any social media at all anymore, except for to promote things on Twitter. But I read my Twitter feed constantly, all the time. I love reading Twitter. It's so funny. I don't even read my mentions at all anymore. It's like not even a part of my routine. I'm literally just on there looking at the news, following the Jets, following Politico, following whatever it is. And I can only imagine how bad it would be for me if, like, Instagram makes me feel bad about myself.
Me too.
I don't even
It really does.
I don't even go on it. And I feel bad about that. Actually, I found out a good friend of mine's dad died. My friend Christian, who you I think knew, Dig. He was the guitarist in my band, Paper Champ.
Yeah.
His father, who was a big proponent of our band, and we used to practice at their house. He used to drive us some of our shows. He was a great man. He died, but I found out 4 days later because I wasn't on Instagram. And then I messaged him, and we talked. But I was like, that's really sad, but that's the way I would have known. But that's not how I get my news. And Facebook, I just feel like it's for old people, and it's just a very antiquated, like, I really do feel that way about Facebook.
It's going that way.
And again, this sounds like such a hipster thing, but I was on Facebook when there was 12 schools on Facebook. And that was it. I was there at the very, very beginning of it. Go look at the old screenshots and look at the schools, and you'll see Northeastern on there. And it was weird and magical and strange. There was a time when there was a wall, the so-called wall, and it was just a wall of text on your page, and you would write something on it, and you could write whatever you want. Then other people can delete it or bump it down, and it'd be like kind of like your whiteboard. And it was like really neat. And I'm not one of these people that's like, they ruined it when they let everyone on. I don't think that's what ruined Facebook. I just think Facebook sucks.
No.
It's just not an interesting place. It's very, very corporatized. I don't believe anything I see on it. I don't believe that I'm seeing anything on it because I follow it. The algorithm is Zuckerberg's just a creep. And I don't know. I don't like Facebook. I don't like the process or the program at all. But so it's literally Twitter and Reddit. And I don't even log into Reddit. I don't even read our own Reddit. I literally just go to I love fucking fight porn. I love public freakouts. Am I the asshole? Like I'm on these things sometimes for hours a day. And that's the even saddest part is I'm not like clicking around from a bunch of different things. I'm just so engaged in these few things, and I really need to excise them from my life. I really do feel like it's got to go.
Well, can't you just enjoy it for a half hour a day? That's my argument. Can you just go on there like you were like we used to tune into a TV show in the 80s? Like the Wonder Years is going to be on from 8 to 8:30. I'm definitely going to catch that. I don't want to miss it. Or like a Yankee game, or for you, a Jets game. You know what I mean? Like treat it like that, where it's a disciplined, regimented thing with a specific start and end time, and then you could really enjoy it and look forward to it and not feel like you're overindulging to the point of like feeling bad about yourself. That's what I think we just have to develop those kind of habits like we have with everything else. It's interesting to talk about Facebook because I think Facebook was the boomers generation into being addicted to social media and their phones. Interesting.
And they corrupted it, right? Like that
I
generation
think Gen
kind
X
of
corrupted it. I think my generation corrupted it.
Yeah.
But I think the boomers get blamed. But why are they any different? They're humans too. They found a way into, that endorphin rush, finding old classmates and old neighbors and old friends and all that kind of thing. They're no different. Like the Gen Xers, I think, really are the ones, my generation, that sort of corrupted Facebook, if that's how you want to label it, which is actually really funny. But the boomers get blamed. The boomers get blamed for it.
They get blamed for everything.
They really do.
They really do. They get blamed for everything.
As they should.
Yeah, they probably should. I mean, I'm on Facebook right now. I haven't signed in, and I don't know. I mean, I log into the Last Standing to post stories, but I'm in my own right now, and it's just a bunch of things that are like suggested for you. I feel like I'm in the IGN backend right now. There are so many modules up. There's like all the ad center, ads manager, meta business suite, professional dashboard. It's like,
there's 8 49-year-olds not on Twitter, not on Facebook, and I'm one of them. That's never been on Facebook. There's literally
you've never done it.
Never.
You've never done it.
I'm not interested. I'm just not interested in it. Not at all.
Yeah, you like Facebook.
I mean, it's all the memes. Facebook is the meme place. The thing about Facebook is if you're only using it to follow your grandma and your aunt, it kind of sucks. All right. But if you use Facebook to find cool recipes, or if you use it to find memes, which is like my primary source of joy in my life, then it's pretty awesome. There's an endless supply of those, just always.
You guys got to take it back, Micah. You're probably like one of the youngest people on Facebook. You guys got to kind of take it back. I feel like take it back from the Gen Xers. We're so crusty.
Kill it.
And the boomers.
The best thing that could happen is for all the social media sites to just shut down. The baller move Elon Musk could have done for humanity is to have bought Twitter and literally deleted it. Just been like, it's over.
That would have been such a baller.
That would have been he would have been legendary for, he's going to be legendary for a bunch of other things, but that would have been a legendary move. Anyway, Ben.
Yeah, I've been sitting here for like the last 20 minutes. I've got 4 things I wrote down that I want to pull out.
Please.
One, I stopped using Facebook. I was also on Facebook very early, and I stopped using Facebook in March of 2020, which is right about the time like all the shutdowns and stuff happened. And between pandemic arguing and being mayor in a small town, I just couldn't take it anymore. And so I turned it off. And I think I logged in one time because I had a business page. I was trying to give somebody else who had the business, who needed to post on it, access. And that's the last time I was on there. So as far as I'm concerned, you can remove it from the internet. Send me a zip file with all my pictures or something. I'm fine. There was a couple other things. Micah, I'm wondering if you're the exception that proves the rule as far as, your particular generation. Because even though we're only 6 years apart, I feel like there's a lot of distance there, because by the time you were born, I remember already like friends and people talking about the internet, going into chat rooms. And certainly by the time I was in, 5th grade or so, probably like 97, 98, somewhere in there, like people were on AOL Instant Messenger and everything else. So was it strange? Not strange to you, but like, were you the exception amongst your peers? Because even like Dustin and you were the same age, right? I think you're born in the same year. And Dustin, like, when I talked to him about stuff, like, I remember him talking about using the internet and everything, like, long before you're talking about it. So I'm wondering if that was like an anomaly in your area, maybe.
No, but I'm realizing it is the location. I grew up in a very rural part of Western Mass. I grew up surrounded by farms. Like you drive everywhere you go, there's cows, and like it's farm country. Well, we had some normal stuff. There's a Walmart a half hour away, stuff like that, right? But a big part of it is where I grew up. There are areas from that, that county that still don't have cable internet. Like they're still on DSL. So like really DSL came to our neighborhood when I was, 12 or 13. So it just was like, where I lived. Was...
I had to say it. Sorry.
Oh, no. But it just was a big part of it was location. I had friends who DSL, was the new big thing, and it literally stopped at their street. All their neighbors had it, and Comcast was like, we're not bringing it farther than this house number. And then the rest of the town didn't get it. Yeah. So I think most of that it's less so age, but more so where I grew up is not a place that had great access to it. So we didn't have internet until I was much older.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
I didn't, I was thinking about what you said about, like one person had an iPhone or whatever. When I went to college and had, was driving and away from home, I finally got a cell phone, but smartphones didn't exist yet. And I'm not that much older than you, but I remember like, I got a cell phone and it was like super duper limited. And a couple of years later, the iPhone came out and the original Droid came out. But I was like one of the last people I knew to get a cell phone by like a decade. So it was just that was just weird. That's all I was thinking is that I think you're right in that. I mean, I'm sure you're right in that your own experience, but I don't know what point I had with that. It was just a conversation piece, I guess.
Yeah, I had like a very basic cell phone from 8th grade to 12th grade just because it's what we could afford. Like it was for emergencies. I had a track phone for emergencies only. It had 3 games on it that were fun. I had the phone that looked like a fake BlackBerry, but had no internet access. But there was one rich kid that got like the first, the iPhone that came out. And he was the only kid in the whole school that had one. He was the only like rich kid. And everyone else, like we had iPods, that had been a thing for several years, but nobody else had a smartphone. We all just had our basic track phones and shit. And that's what we were stuck with until we had our own money to buy them.
What iPhone was that, Micah? Do you remember what era was that? Was that
the first one?
That was the very
I was
first...
in high school from 2008, 2011.
Well, the first
when I was in
iPhone.
High school.
I feel like nobody had the first iPhone, right?
I remember people coming in when I was at Penn State. People coming in like in my circle who had like waited overnight to get it.
Wow.
To get the very first one. And there were a couple of them. And of course they were the rich kids at college too, of course. Right. No average person just went out and bought an iPhone the first day they were out.
Yeah, they were expensive.
I do remember there was no app store or anything. It was just like, here's the phone. You can look at the weather. I don't even remember if Stocks was a part of it. I think Safari was part of it. And you can do the same things you can do with a regular phone, but on a screen with your finger instead of with buttons.
Right.
Was the big thing. Yeah.
Well, and then also remembering when he dropped it, when that kid finally dropped, we were all sick of him because he'd constantly be like, I got the new iPhone. And we were like, yeah, that's great, whatever. And then he finally dropped it. And it was like, good, fucking good.
Oh, man. Why couldn't you just be humble about it, right? Like, be the rich kid, but be humble about it. That's cooler,
Yeah, like Richie Rich was a cool rich kid, right? Like he was kind of like the down kid that
I
would
think he was cool, right? Like he wasn't.
Yeah, like I thought that was the
uppity.
whole thing. I
Yeah.
never read the comics or anything, but like
I never did
or,
either.
you know, but I thought he was kind of like he was supposed to be down, like right.
He was
There were
chill.
two other things, Colin, that you said about that sparked things in my mind. One was about like the study about how often people see their friends
Mhm.
and everything. And I know that's true. It's certainly true in my life, but of course that could be, you know, getting older, having a family, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like though I'm more connected to people and people that I wouldn't have normally been able to stay connected with. Like I've got friends from past lives. Like I'm more connected with them now through things like Discord and whatnot than I would have been when I would just go see them in person, because like there was a point where you could go see your friends in person and you went to see one or two friends. You didn't get to talk to whoever. But now like it's not as much as it used to be, but all the time I'm on Discord or some other app that I can talk with, talking to people, and we're a lot of times playing games, but we're like, that's not the point. Like, yeah, we like to play games, but we just want to hang out. And we happen to be doing a common activity. So I'm curious if like people are, maybe they're seeing their friends less, but they're more connected now than they've ever been, whether that's through, you know, text messaging or Snapchat or whatever is going on. So I'm curious about that. And then the other thing, and I don't know what point was this, but I've heard you talk about, I've heard many people talk about like the fact that us having less things to do as we get more industrialized over time, you know, brought in things like religion and stuff like that. And I'm not sure if I agree with that, but I certainly understand the idea there.
Well, that's not really disputed, is it? That like, you know, when people stopped having to worry about surviving, then all the other kind of philosophical things came out of that.
I think maybe the philosophy and stuff, but I think there was always religion.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it was like in the way that it is currently.
Yeah, like maybe like lore and handed down stories and like pre-writing, all that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know that it was like you know, I'm not sure when clergy originated necessarily,
right.
But
yeah, you're probably right. I mean, there would be some sort of shaman character or some sort of
The QAnon shaman.
The QAnon shaman. Free the QAnon shaman.
But I think that's part of why, like, now we have more time to be stuck on technology and addicted to things, is because, like, you know, when's the last time you had to go out and chop firewood because you had to, not because you wanted to, and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's like there is definitely a drastic part of our culture that has changed due to technology being able to do things for us that we don't have to do anymore, which has then led into us spending more time with that technology doing things that are leisure. And I don't know if you're supposed to say leisure or leisure. I think leisure makes you sound smarter.
I like leisure.
Yeah, I like saying leisure just because it's annoying.
Oh, I say leisure.
Yeah, so, no, I usually say leisure too, but I say, you know, leisure. Yeah, just because it's obnoxious.
So I don't know if any of those points necessarily lead to anything. I just I wrote down while you were talking.
One of them does. Well, for me, and I can let other people tune in if they want. But I think you're right that we're more interconnected. I mean, it's not even up for debate. We're more interconnected with each other than we've ever been, and it's easier to keep touch and in touch with people and touch base. But I feel like it's kind of fed my own tendency towards asocial. I don't really want it. And I think people use the term antisocial, but that's really kind of a negative term that you're kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. I think asocial is the more appropriate. Like you don't really need to be around a lot of people or whatever. And I think that's fed a lot of it so that I actually don't feel close to virtually anyone except for a small handful of people, like a very small handful of people. And I feel like I have this very puddle deep relationship with many people. And part of me wonders if I was just born a few generations earlier, what would that look like? What kind of person would I be? This kind of job wouldn't be even possible. So I'd probably be in a much more social setting every day for work and all those kinds of things. Even my corporate job at IGN is so distant. That idea of being around people and being in an office and, hey, how you doing? Oh, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, it just seems so foreign to me these days. And so I feel like you're right, but I also feel like it's, for a person like me, it makes it feel like, oh, I'm touching base. Yeah, okay, good. I'm almost putting in the bare minimum. And as opposed to maybe no effort at all. But if I knew that I was not going to be able to kind of maintain anything with that person, maybe I would try harder. Again, another maybe sign of just a personal weakness or a personal failing.
Well, I think that also could be a case of nature nurture kind of thing, because like, you know, you're more reserved and, not a negative way to say this, but just a way to say it, antisocial. maybe if you were raised in a time where that wasn't an option, then you would be more desiring to see other people, and if you couldn't work from home, then, and I think about that with myself too. Like I've gone through different periods of my life where I was like an extreme extrovert to an extreme introvert, and just different situations in my life, and I'm like, what am I actually? Because I tend to morph to the situation I'm thrust into rather than what I actually want to do. Whether that's like right now, I don't really go out and do much of anything because I don't have to. But if I had to, would I enjoy it? Probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to think about like how our lives would be different had we been born a few generations earlier. Would we even be the same temperament or type of person that we are because of technology lacking or different types of technology that would force us into different situations? I don't like to think about that because I don't like to think about me being a different person.
No, I totally. I mean, I agree. All right. Can we move on? I don't want to go too long. All right, cool. So let's stick with you then, Ben.
Sure.
Because I want to end with Dagan's topic. I think it's appropriate to end with. So Ben, let's hear from you. What's your topic this week?
My topic is just simply documentaries, and I'm taking a page out of Dagan's book where I'm just going to kind of throw out the topic of documentaries, and we can take it in whatever direction we want to. I have some documentary recommendations, talk about how I got into documentaries. I have a funny story about documentaries, etc. I'll start off. I didn't really realize that documentaries could be good at a certain point. Like, man, maybe they weren't always good because when I was growing up, all the documentaries really I knew were boring, crusty old men on National Geographic. Here you see the majestic gazelle, and it's like, yeah, those are interesting. I like to learn about things that I didn't know about, but like, I don't know, are they interesting? Are they actually are they just informative, or are they actually like entertaining too? And so there comes this like new period, and I don't know when it started, but I know when I got clued into it, of like documentaries that are as much entertainment as they are informative. And I'm not talking about like, and I guess these are documentaries to some extent, but like, the new wave of crime dramas and murder porns and everything else, where like we just like to revel in someone's story about how they got hacked to pieces. Or I'm not talking about TLC, where they just exploit people who are born with different midgets, for lack. I don't know what the right PC word is, but I'm not talking about like,
I think is the
little
right term.
people. Okay. Like TLC exploiting people. Like, I don't think that's a documentary. That's just purely entertainment. But I think there is a mix of entertainment and documentary now, where we have things like, most in the game sphere back 10 or so years ago, we had the indie game documentary, and over the years we've seen stuff like Super Size Me, which was based on the book, but it really kind of shone a light on certain aspects of the fast food industry while also being informative and entertaining. And I'm just curious, we have war documentaries, which sometimes those can be really boring and sometimes they can be really fascinating and see different lights of things. So I'm just curious what your guys' experience is with documentaries, whether you like them or not. I figured I knew that Colin and Dagan would have at least a passing interest. Before the show, I asked Micah, because I didn't want to pick a topic where she'd just be like, I don't know. So what are your experiences with documentaries? What kinds of documentaries do you like? Go from there.
Yeah, I will. I'll take it. I love documentaries. They're some of my favorite things in, let's say, the entertainment medium. And what comes to mind for me is, I wrote this down. I wrote this specific thing down because I wanted to get this thought out, is that it is easier to make a good documentary than a good film or a good TV show. And there are way, 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 way more good documentaries than there are good TV shows or good movies, in my opinion. Because I have a very curious brain. I always have, and I'm proud of that. I mean, it's not something I tried to have. It's just, I am naturally curious about all things. I don't know. It's so, I'm an easy mark for a good documentary about any topic is something I'll watch. And in reality, I'll watch a documentary about almost any topic. And even the one you were kind of like the Attenborough style documentary you were describing is like, I love that shit. Yeah. That shit's awesome, where there's almost, especially with the animals and like the natural documentaries, where there's very little VO, and a lot of it is oral audio and just the shots of the animals and all that. I love that shit. It's awesome. But you know what comes to mind for me, and I wonder if you can relate to this, Ben, is yes, I hate the government. It's true. But one of the things that the government helps fund that I love very much is PBS. And I think PBS actually deserves way more money than it gets. I think it's incredibly cheap. And I think it's important for a modern society to invest heavily in arts and entertainment and information. I think that's totally fine. And we're giving money hand over fist to Ukraine. We're spending money on bombs to drop on people. The weapons manufacturers are a fucking war machine. This is nothing. This is a literal drop of gasoline in one of those tanks. And you know what they do? They make 2 shows that for decades have provided what I would consider to be the best documentaries around, which is Nova and Frontline. And these 2 shows are absolute bangers. And I have no idea where they get off being so good, especially Frontline, because Frontline is often very quick. Sometimes they have a 2-hour documentary ready to go a week after something happened. Like incredible stuff. I always imagined there was a time when I really wanted to like work at Frontline when I was younger. And I always imagined that like they're all sitting around. First of all, they have multiple production units, but they're sitting around and something happens and they're like, we're going, let's go. Everyone's like up in the middle of the night, like we're going, we got to go. It's time to go. This thing happens that we're making this film about. I think that that's the way they do it. And I'm saddened. I think you can find them on one of PBS's like many subscription services. It's obnoxious that PBS has multiple subscriptions. It fucking bothers me to no end. But I think on one of them you can get into the old Novas and Frontlines, and those Novas going all the way back to the 70s and the Frontlines are probably so good. I mean, I probably could watch nothing but Frontline from the 80s for an entire year and be satisfied. So I feel like those are the most high quality, repeatable forms of documentaries in existence, in addition to ESPN's 30 for 30, which is an extraordinary series if you're into sports. And even if you're not, because again, for me, I'll watch documentaries about anything, but I don't like a lot of sports, or I don't care about a lot of sports. I'll still watch every episode of 30 for 30 because it's so good. Yeah. So yes, I love documentaries. I love the topic. I love the celebration of knowledge. I love using that kind of filmmaking and that auteurness to tell a real story. I think that there's obviously a huge place for fiction. We love that stuff, but it's a lot harder to do. The barriers to entry of interest and intrigue for me are much higher. So you're going to get me on documentaries left, right, and center. The one exit thing I'll say is that I think we're getting into the Netflixization of documentaries now, where they're adding padding and making things too long and making things in the series where they don't need to be. And the recent documentary that I refused to even finish watching about the Pepsi plane from the 90s was that's a dope idea. I remember that. I was telling Micah, because I was like, I remember this straight up. I remember that commercial straight up. And so it was interesting, but I'm like, what the fuck is this documentary about? Why is this 4 episodes? Why can't this be an hour? And then on the other hand, I watch these, and I don't know if you watch any of these, Ben, but just random YouTube documentarians that make 5-hour documentaries that are fucking insanely good.
Or the 70-part series on Chris Chan. I
just started that the other day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Get ready, buddy.
Yeah, I just what makes him so, I love that guy's voice. That guy's got an amazing voice.
You did not tell me this.
I think you were in the shower. I think I shut it off before you got back.
Thank you.
Shame.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
I knew you wouldn't want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I very much relate, Colin, that I'll watch a documentary about almost anything. Like, there's also the documentaries that are part movie, part documentary, and like I think about something like Man on Wire, about the the tightrope walker, and like they actually spliced in footage of the actual events with a documentary, and of course they're going to take narrative and creative differences in that, but when you have something like that that's really telling a story and using actual footage of the events, like I find those types of things interesting. But I agree with you that things like what you're talking about with documentaries that are just too long, they're drug out just intentionally to be, I don't like those. Something that was really good, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's a documentary about the guy who and they spoil this right in the description. It's like a 45-minute documentary about a guy who was at a baseball game and got convicted of or at least was arrested
Oh,
for
Curb Your
murder.
Enthusiasm, the Curb Your Enthusiasm guy.
And there was a shot of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and that was like a 45-minute documentary. Of course, I knew the ending already, whatever. But
it's a crazy story, man.
It was just really well done in the fact that it was just like quick, concise, told me what I needed to know. But I'm also, I'm not really sure how I feel too about like now that I don't know. There's documentaries that are like, this is an ongoing thing. Let's do a documentary. I'm like, no, that's the news. That's not a documentary. Like Serial, the podcast. I like audio documentaries too, but Serial, which is part documentary, part crime drama investigation, whatever. They're doing a documentary about something that's not even finalized yet, and I'm not sure if that's okay. I think it is ultimately.
It's more like journalism to me.
Yeah, it's more like journalism, but I think it was to some extent was presented as documenting.
Yeah, Vice does that kind of too.
Yeah, Vice is great.
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't. Dagan and Mike, I cut off before you guys chimed in.
Oh, no worries, Micah. Do you want to go next?
I can, because
ladies first.
I'm the one who has probably the worst taste in documentaries, because I want to say that I am the nature person. I don't get to watch them anymore. It's been years since I've shared a home with someone who likes animals very much, so just no one wants to watch these with me. But it was a huge part of my life growing up. My Nana and I, my mom's mom, would always watch nature documentaries, and she'd always root for the zebras or like root for the gazelles to get away from the lions. She'd get really upset like if the lion like caught one, but she'd be like cheering them on, like, run, you got to get out of there. It was like a horror movie for her. And so those are some really fun memories of hanging out with Nana. And also my dad, we love Steve Irwin. We love Jeff Corwin, like all those nature shows. So any nature documentary that was on like National Geographic Channel, we'd watch it. My dad was like an avid hunter and fisher. So we watched a lot of documentaries about, deer and wildlife. And those were huge parts of my childhood. And I do just love animals. Like I'm the person, like I have a favorite animal still. I realized as I get older, it's no longer a valid question when you meet someone, because most people our age just kind of don't care. But I love animals, like truly. So if I'm talking about a documentary that I actually want to watch, it'd be something animal related. But I do remember the phenomenon of Super Size Me. Mm-hmm. And I had to Google his name because I forgot. I was trying to think of like, who's the documentarian? He's like kind of large. He's always wearing a hat. And it was Michael Moore. But I remember that being a big thing when I was a kid. I don't know.
He fell off. Yeah. No, Michael Moore was fucking huge. And, huge. Bowling for Columbine, and it started with Michael. What was it, Roger and Me, and which was about Flint, Michigan. Yeah. That's from the 80s. But yeah, he did like the 9/11 documentary, and then of course Inconvenient Truth from Al Gore was big in that era.
Yeah, we had to watch that for school. So that's where some of this stuff, the more serious ones, like started to enter my life, and we had to watch them for school type thing. But we had to watch Super Size Me for health class. So like the quality of my education starts to come out a little bit.
That guy's awesome. But I read recently, did you see this, Micah, he was like a raging alcoholic apparently when they were doing that. And so like a lot of it is just kind of.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I go on. I'm going to look into that because I was just reading about that recently.
Yeah, Morgan Spurlock.
So in other words, Morgan Spurlock, right. Yeah. That's what they were. I was reading something where they were saying, like he was kind of just like drinking the whole time. So of course he had like a horrible liver reaction.
Is that right?
McDonald's. Yeah. I'm going to read into, yeah. Is that true, Ben? You read that?
I saw that headline. I didn't read the article. Yeah.
Yeah.
But growing up, my mom and sister always loved the murder shows, murderinos, I call them. And I never was a big fan, but I'd watch it. They would always have on like the 48 hours thing about like, you have 48 hours to find the person or they're dead. Not the Jack Bauer one, but like the real one. And like, and 24. I just, yeah, exactly. And I hated it. I hated the murder shows. They made me upset, but I watched it because they were using the television and I wanted something to look at. So for much of my life, these murder shows have just always been in it. And I guess now I'm kind of used to it. And Colin watches a lot of them. So it's just kind of a part of the background of my life all the time. But it's actually one of my great laments, the accessibility of these like murder documentaries.
Yeah, sorry, I try to limit. I try to keep my.
No, it's fine.
I try to keep my what would you call it? Amateur documentaries to predator catchers at this point.
Yeah. That's much
These
better.
guys fucking
It's
killing it out there. Anxiety war. Keep it going, my friend. Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, I will say one of my all-time favorites. I don't know if this counts as a documentary because it was like a mini series. There was a great show called Meerkat Manor on the Animal Channel when I was younger.
I remember
and it was narrated by Sean Astin. I didn't know who that was until last year when I watched Lord of the Rings, and I was like, wait, that's the Meerkat Manor guy? Like that's what I knew him from. And that was fantastic. They turned these meerkats' life into just a whole saga of like from like birth to death. You're gonna follow this family of meerkats, and it was fantastic.
Who doesn't love a meerkat? Honestly,
they had like wars, they had battles, there was love triangles. Like it was really intense, and it was fantastic. You got Sean Astin with the buttery voice laid over top of it, and for me, that's like the pinnacle of documentary entertainment. Like there was nothing better to me ever than Meerkat Manor. And so that is like the top of the top for me for what I'd consider a fantastic documentary. And now they're just everywhere. You go on Netflix and yeah, there's hundreds of them. You got The Ancient Apocalypse, whatever. That was okay. I felt
Talked about
That's not a documentary.
Is not?
I don't
Doesn't
think that's a
count?
documentary.
I think
We're following an old man.
I think it is, but I think it's like maybe pseudo-scientific or pseudo-historical, depending on how you look at it. But I think it is positioned as a documentary.
I feel that way about like I guess it is a documentary, just in the same way to me that Michael Moore's documentaries are documentaries, because they are documentaries, but I feel like they have an extreme bias. Maybe not as much Ancient Apocalypse, but like the Michael Moore documentaries, I go into them with a healthy amount of skepticism because I already know they're starting. Everybody has bias, but they're starting at a place.
Oh, definitely.
That is further than the middle. And I guess the same thing comes along with any documentary, really, but unless you're really just analyzing like old war footage or something, but yeah, or animals for that matter.
Dig, what do you think? Oh, I'm sorry.
Objective. I was going to say, objective is the name of the game with some of that stuff. And maybe that's why I enjoy animals so much. There's no right or wrong. It's just meerkats.
Micah, I have a recommendation for you if you haven't seen it, and you may hate me after you watch it, but you'll probably like it. There's a documentary came out a couple years ago called My Octopus Teacher.
Oh, it's so good.
Okay, that's all I want to say. It's about an octopus and a person that kind of meets the octopus,
and you'll cry.
All right,
and you will probably weep.
I cried.
I did, but it's about animals, and it's very, very good.
Oh,
and, I think it's on Netflix even.
It's on Netflix. It's a Netflix doc, I think. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
That just reminds me of when March of the Penguins came out, and my Nana was very excited, and then she was really mad. I mean, this is the age before like spoilers being a thing. None of us knew what we were getting ourselves into, and she was livid that it was sad. She was like, "How dare you bring me to this movie?" Like she was really upset that like March of the Penguins was not like a happy family romp. It wasn't a Happy Feet,
right?
And I think that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
So I'll go into that with knowing that maybe it'll be a bit sad.
Yes.
It's good. It's good. I'm so glad you remembered to bring that.
I've never cared about octopus before that at all.
No, who has? No one has.
But I cared about that documentary.
Yeah, that puts octopus on the map. Octopi on the map after thousands of years. They finally get a little recognition for being something more than disgusting and horrifying, but delicious to eat.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are killing it with the topics this week. I don't even know. I could talk about this one for hours. You know what's cool too? I didn't see Ben's email with the topic, so I thought we were coming in like we did with, I think, Chris's topic last week, which kind of got me to thinking. And Kyle could just slap this ball out of the air right now. Kind of like the model of going in. I kind of like the model of going in, not knowing anybody's topic. It could be a little problematic.
No. So, I mean, this was the original. That was when this is modeled on an old show that I came up with that we ended up calling Game Over Greggy Show back in the day.
Yes.
And that was the model of the show, which is that everyone would come in with topics that no one knew anything
come in cold.
What it was. But I was criticized heavily for that because people felt like they weren't able to prepare or whatever. So that's why. So we can go if you want to fucking get crazy with it.
The lack of preparation,
you
would be
know,
hilarious.
I'll get fucking nuts with it. You know.
No.
I think we gotta try.
Even though I know your topics, if that helps.
Well, I'm not preparing, I guess, literally in some sense, but just the very awareness of the topic makes you, I would hope you'd be working in the background, as a background process or something like that. At least I am. So We can go. If you want to get fucking crazy with it, let's do it.
I'm ready. Anytime. I'm a mark. Listen, I'm an old mark for documentaries. I have a lot of perspective on this. I'll tell you what started it for documentaries for me. 3 things. 1, years ago, I discovered my love for written biographies, right? Now follow me. It's kind of a weird line across, but I just found out when I used to love reading fiction, and I still do, but when I found out about biographies, it was really cool for me because I realized I just love to read about people's stories, interesting people, and it didn't even matter what their passion was, as long as there was some passion there for something. It could be actor, an artist, read about a director, a politician, even athletes, musicians, whatever. I'll pick up a good biography. If it's good, they have a lock on me for the entire, from start to finish. I'm in. And I carried my love of biographies across the documentaries. And this is another benefit about being an old man, because I went to art school in the 90s. And the thing about going to school for animation, it was the best of both worlds of going to an art school. It's sort of part art school, part film school. It's a hybrid thing when you're going to school for animation. And I had some crusty old analog filmmaker professors, especially for my electives. I had my teacher that taught my 16 millimeter live action filmmaking class, where the whole idea was to learn about shooting live action film, edit it on like an old fashioned moviola, and learn how to add sound and all the old analog methods of filmmaking. But basically the whole long or short of it was get enough information to make a short. But he came from a historical, maybe even public television documentary filmmaking background, my professor. And he was super passionate about it. And he was kind of trying to steer us towards, even our personal project in class was supposed to be some sort of short form documentary. He made us buy this book, like this crusty old book about documentary filmmaking. And this is, of course, before the documentary boom. I mean, this was probably 1994, right? So this is before documentaries became a thing. And it kind of put me in touch with what documentary films were. Now, as a little kid, you guys had me laughing because I do remember in elementary school sitting in the common areas of our class. So all the kindergarten classes would come and converge, or first grade or whatever. And we'd sit in the common area with the film projector, old school reel to reel, and watch those nature shows, with the film grain, with the film sounds, and with the charismatic, soothing voice of the narrator. And I did love those. There was something really comforting and warm about those things. But later on in the 90s, just finding my first documentary films and figuring out like, oh, this is a whole nother thing. This is like even better than reading a biography because it's so entertaining. And I remember at that time watching documentaries like Crumb, about Robert Crumb, the cartoonist, Grey Gardens, which Colin and I did a knockback
classic.
on. Grizzly Man was another one that was huge for me that I just absolutely was compelled by. Won't You Be My Neighbor, the story about Mr. Rogers, that was a good one. And there's one that not a lot of people know, but it's on everybody's top 50 documentary films. It's called Capturing the Freedmans. And it's about a child, an alleged child, it's about child, what do you call it? Not child pornography, but like pederasts, alleged pederasts on Long Island in the 70s. This family, I think the dad was like a party clown that was apparently abusing children, but nobody knew about it for many years. So it goes and tells the story from the families and the alleged victims' perspectives, which was it's disturbing, but it's fascinating. And then, of course, you guys talking about Morgan Spurlock's Super Size Me. I remember the phenomenon when that came out. I think Colleen and I saw it in our local indie theater at that time. And I went in thinking I was a big fast food mark at that time. And I also weighed probably close to 200 pounds at that time. I remember thinking, like, who's this, like, modern day muckraker Upton Sinclair dude? And I sat in that documentary, and I came out, and I was like, I was kind of horrified. There was that one part about the guy who ate Big Macs 3 meals a day for like 25 years.
And then they like celebrate him or something. They
they give him a party.
It was like his 40th anniversary or something. Like,
I was like,
shit.
I remember coming out of the theater and being like, I'm going cold turkey. No more fast food. It lasted 2 days. 2 days I was back in the McDonald's drive-thru ordering like a Big Mac. It was horrifying.
Oh yeah, I could give a fuck less, dude. I remember reading Fast Food Nation, which preempted that.
That's
movie.
another. Oh my
I read
god!
that for college.
Yeah, and that
Good
book,
book.
Fast Food Nation, is an iconic
Good
turn of the
book.
century book about McDonald's specifically, but about fast food. And I read that. I remember being on a plane reading it and like I think it was so fascinating. The biggest thing I remember is them saying by the time you eat a McDonald's burger, it has been frozen for over 1 year. That's what I remember them having said or whatever. And the crazy thing, and I'm like, and then I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like immediately, I was like, I don't care. It's awesome.
And the burger that sat out for like a year and a half, but it was totally edible, like totally fine to eat. It was it wasn't moldy, or there was nothing wrong with it. It was so packed in salt and sodium or whatever that it was just like, it was fine. Yeah, that whole thing. And then of course, a big one for me is the original Dogtown Z-Boys, Stacy Peralta's documentary about early skateboarding, the Zephyr team and Tony Alva, and just early pro skateboarding in the 70s coming into the 80s. And I'll tell you, the whole thing, I love you guys talking about that aspect of this conversation where now there's this sort of clamoring for the documentary, and it's a known commodity, and everybody's sort of artificially inflating what should be an hour and a half long documentary into this multi-episodic series or whatever. But there is one on Netflix that I'm not sure if you guys seen that I highly recommend. It's called Pretend It's a City, about the social satirist and sort of known curmudgeon. She's a writer. Her name's Fran Lebowitz. And she's like a New York institution. I think the series is produced by Martin Scorsese, and I think they're going to do a season 2. But she is a fascinating individual, not because only how quick and smart and funny she is, but just because she's one of these, talking about with Colin's part of the conversation today. She doesn't have social media. She doesn't have a computer. She doesn't own a smartphone. She's just this long-time New York writer, basically. And a New York, sort of a mark for New York City. Like, I'm never leaving this place, and just sings the praises of New York and doesn't want people to come from outside New York. Like, she's a curmudgeon, you know, and she's fascinating. So that is one example of taking something, and you're glad that it's multi-parted because it's so good. And I'll tell you, man, I never talk about this to anybody. I have had an idea for a documentary for like 25 years. And I'm fascinated with live action filmmaking. There's a big part of me that wishes I went into that as a career instead of animation. But Colin would be surprised to hear about this because we know a dude in our family. He's our Uncle John's brother. His name is Pete. He goes by Guitar Pete. And he's a amazing rock guitarist and blues musician. Like really, really talented, almost like prodigious. But he's an interesting dude because he's this kind of an eccentric cat. He never got married. He lived at home with his parents into his 50s. I think he's not that much younger than our parents. Like, he's pushing 70, if I'm not mistaken. And he still lives that lifestyle. He just basically plays gigs in New York City and on Long Island. And he's kind of a musician. What do you call it, Kyle, when it's like a gig musician, like somebody that they could plug into a band that maybe he'll go play
like a touring musician, a working musician.
Yeah, a touring musician. Like, he's known, like he used to play with Twisted Sister. I think he might have played with Springsteen at one point. Like, but he never really broke out. You know what I mean? He never really broke out. And I would just be fascinated. I think he's a fascinating guy. And I would just love to tell his story because he's like nobody else I've ever met. And I think that's what documentary filmmaking is all about. Like, what can you make an interesting story about and make me come away feeling like that's my passion too? I don't know I'm fascinated with musical talent, but I don't know anything about playing the guitar. But I would watch that all day long just because he's an interesting cat, you know? So yeah, documentaries, man. I mean, I could just go on and on. There's another YouTube channel. Do you guys know? I don't know if this falls into documentary, but besides Vice, which I've loved for a long time, there's this YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. Do you guys know it?
Oh yeah, we watched that a lot.
Mark Lyda.
That guy was on Rogan recently too.
He's an interesting dude. Really successful advertising photographer. that just got tired of like that indulgent life and basically went onto Skid Row and just tells these stories and interviews basically people from the gutter, you know, pimps, prostitutes, gangbangers, criminals, child like pornographers, like anybody who's like, you know, the underworld, the underside of humanity, black marketers, whatever.
I'm sure YouTube's going to love that you brought up child porn twice on this episode. You're going to really feel that.
Molesters, like you don't even, just tell. Let's just double down on it.
He's just going right into it. He's like, okay, good. Very good. He's just
but isn't it interesting that like, it doesn't like, it's such a repulsive thing, but it's an interesting human story. You know what I mean? And this guy he walked away from like this. He was a millionaire and he walked away from, I'm sure he's doing very well.
He probably still is. I can't imagine how much he makes on YouTube, dude. His YouTube videos
huge.
Are fucking
He must be huge. Does that fall into documentary? I guess it kind I guess it kind of does.
Yeah.
In a way.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. He was on Rogan recently too.
I saw that.
I had been watching him before that, but then I got to know him a little bit better and about his whole stance. He's a little bit standoffish, actually. He comes off as a little bit kind of strange, but
he doesn't know how to be interviewed. He just knows how to do the interview, it seems like, right? He's not comfortable on the flip side.
What I couldn't believe was that it seems like there's no transaction, which was one of the things that I wanted to kind of get more into, unless I missed that part of the show because I only watched a few clips, but was my assumption was always that he was paying these people. But I don't think that's true.
I think it is true.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think so.
Because for me, that seems to be like the vital part of it. Why would anyone do this? Yeah. That's why it's so, soft white underbelly is a great pull.
Good
and
shit.
I know I say this a lot, you know, just staying on the YouTube topic. I know I say this a lot, but I really, really love the child predator catcher videos. Like they're so fucking good. Like the people that do them really well, if Anxiety War is the guy that I would recommend the most if people want to check that guy out. He's awesome. And he's the guy that I stole the whole free shipping on stickers thing from because he does that too. And he's really good. Like his stuff is so well produced. And it's also like he only puts the lead up and like the preparation for the catch on YouTube. And then he puts everything else behind a paywall. So I was part of his Patreon for a little while to watch some of that stuff. But he's awesome. And then we love these guys named the Colorado Ped Patrol. And they fucking rule too. And they make, as I've said before many times, they make the targets call their spouse on the phone, insane. Or they'll call the cops on them. And it's amazing, dude. Like, and actually there was one that just was published where I was actually devastating. Like the wife was like falling apart on the phone. And I was like, this is so sad.
That's
like,
so sad. Dude.
But it is, but I keep saying this. Like I look for things. That's why I like fight videos and public freakouts. I like real things. Like I want it real. Right. And this shit is watching these people's lives for their horrible decisions and the things they were going to do fall apart on camera in a 20 or 30 minute sequence is amazing. It's like it's the most real shit I've ever seen in my life.
It's awful.
Like because you could see like everything and like it's over for you now. Like you're caught and everyone's going to know about this forever and you're done. You know, and you're watching it on camera and so I'm quite compelled by that as well. But
it's like, it's devastating because I mean, these people's lives are dissolving before your very eyes. I think I meant child predators, not child pornographers. Maybe we should take that part out. That's terrible too. And maybe Mark Lyda does have those. I don't know who he has on there. He has seemingly.
I guess there would be a statute of limitations, so it's possible that if someone wanted to confess to things they did in the past.
That's a good. I mean,
there have been people that have like explicitly on his show said their crimes. Some of them had already gone to jail for it,
sure.
It's like, these are people confessing at times to things that they weren't put away for.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you have to imagine that, they're waiting that 20 years to tell their story.
My favorite part is just me saying that about Dagan, and then the next word he says is, molesters. I'm like, all right, I guess we're going to double down on that. A couple of the other recommendations I want to... well, if you want to, I don't really care. I think that's fine. But I'll leave
cover it up with Sonic fans.
Sonic fans, right?
We've talked too much about it now. It won't matter. We're talking about it in context,
exactly, and it's also deep in the episode, and I don't really care that much either. Yeah. All right, so before I throw it back to you, Ben, if you want to wrap things up, I just wanted to give a few recommendations myself. I said that it's hard to do tight episodic. Or harder to do tight episodic documentaries, and I think one-off or longer film length documentaries, and I think that's true. But a couple of, And I already talked about Nova and Frontline and 30 for 30, which are great one-off series. But interconnected series that I wanted to recommend include Hard Knocks, which is on HBO every year. That's a really, really high quality and long-running documentary series where they attach themselves to one NFL team every preseason. And it's really good shit. I haven't watched it in a few years because I'm so into football narrative at this point that the things they're getting to, even though it happened 2 days ago, is already spoiled for me. So it's like not that exciting. But the Jets were on it famously in 2010. That's where Rex Ryan said, "Let's go have a goddamn snack," which is still a funny quote in the football circles. And then I wanted to, and also in the sports realm on Netflix, Last Stand You is a very, very good series. I really, really like that series as well. It's about basically washed out collegiate football players with professional potential that go to a well-known and well-respected Southern community college to try to get their shit back together, and about their trials and tribulations. So that's really good shit too. And then the other series that I wanted to recommend are both on PBS, and these are more like living documentaries, I would think. But and actually I tried to get on one of them when I was in college because I wanted to do it, is Manor House and Colonial House. They don't do these anymore, but these were fucking awesome. The idea was, in Manor House, like, you, for 6 months, you'd live on a manor as the role without breaking your role as whatever you are. So like the footboy, or the footman, rather, the hall boy, the cook, I mixed up footman and hall boy.
There is also a footboy.
There is also a footboy.
You don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that guy. So like, but like you would go not knowing. So like the hall boy, which is like the worst thing you could be, like you didn't know until you went there, and you would agree to do the show before you got your role. So like some people would get the role as like the family that lived in the manor, and that could be you, or you might get the role as a footman, or as the cook, or the hall boy, or the stable boy, or the chauffeur, or whatever. And they did that with Manor House, which was super fucking cool. I know Dana, our sister, really likes that as well. And then Colonial House was one where they did it kind of more in 18th century America style for a year. And that was the one I tried to get on, and I wanted to get on. And that was hardcore as fuck. They were like building houses and living. It was dope. And so it was supposed to be about living the life to the T and seeing what it's like no breaking the role. If you break the role, you're out. If you can't leave, like if you leave, you don't get paid, kind of situation for the role. Because they wanted to make sure you stuck around.
Sure.
And then 2 full film documentaries I wanted to recommend. One isn't so interesting anymore because so much has happened since, but it was a very, very eye-opening documentary to me at the time. And it always it reminded me that businesses just lie. All corporations lie. We should be wary of all corporations. Is Who Killed the Electric Car, which is a iconic documentary about GM's destruction of a nascent electric car in the 90s that they basically just went way out of their way to kill, including buying the battery company and then just shutting it down and doing all sorts of crazy shit.
Idiots.
And so it's called Who Killed the Electric Car. Highly recommend that. And then for us gamers out there, there's a very special documentary from 2007 that everyone should see called King of Kong. And if you don't know that documentary, it's about Billy Mitchell and the King Kong, the Donkey Kong high score, and the teacher in Washington State that was like going against him, and it's like this David versus Goliath story, and it's absolutely fascinating.
It's essential.
And the DVD, what would they call it? What do they call it? When they speak over it? Why can't I think of the word?
Oh,
the
commentary.
Commentary. Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah,
the commentary is on that DVD is by my friend who hired me at IGN, Chris Carl.
Oh, cool.
And which is kind of a cool little connection too, a little personal connection. So I wanted to I'm going on and on, but I wanted to just recommend those as well. I love this topic. Ben, is there anything else you want to say as we wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a few suggestions as well for a variety of things. And one of them, so the first 2 I'll recommend, but I will also not recommend something. When my wife was pregnant with our first kid, we were like, let's watch a documentary. Let's trying to find something to watch, and there was nothing good. And I was like, oh, my favorite documentary is called Dear Zachary. Let's watch that. And that was a big mistake because Dear Zachary involves the murder of a child, and my wife was like 7 months pregnant. And it was not a good idea. So she goes, so we finish it, and she's like weeping, and she's like, it's very sad, but she's like, let's watch another documentary, but let's make it happier. And like there was a brand new documentary on Netflix at the time, and it was Katy Perry's Part of Me. And she and I, neither one care at all about Katy Perry, but like I said before, I'll watch a documentary about anything. And so we were like, let's watch this. It's Katy Perry about concerts. It's got to be great. And of course, it's tragic and like deals with breakups and stuff. So don't watch sad documentaries or anything that could be with anyone who is maybe in a higher emotional state than normal.
Keep it up.
But anyway, so I would recommend, even though I don't really care about Katy Perry, Part of Me. Dear Zachary is a amazing documentary, even though it's very sad. Well, why are so many documentaries sad? Speaking of which, My Octopus Teacher is a great one about an octopus, about a relationship with a person, an octopus. Not a weird, creepy one.
No,
I know there's going to be...
Not like in Japan.
It's not
like in
tentacly
Japan.
at all.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not watching it then.
I was going to recommend Super Size Me and Man on Wire. We already talked about both of those. Now, Super Size Me again is a little bit tainted with some events, but there's a great World War I documentary that Peter Jackson actually did with film from World War I called They Shall Not Grow Old. That one's only a couple years old.
I never saw that.
I would really, really highly recommend that one. Dustin and I actually went to the theater to see that, like when it released. It was only out for like a day or two in theaters. And I think we were the only people there under 75. But so that was a good experience. I was going to recommend King of Kong. Of course, that's a great one. And then there's one called The Jinx.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is on HBO.
Yeah,
I think I was talking to Dagan about this one. The Jinx is, you can't say anything without destroying it, but it's one of the early crime, crime dramas, crime documentaries. And I would just encourage anyone, it is worth the $15 or whatever for a month of HBO to watch the 6 episodes of The Jinx.
Yeah, go in blind too. Go in blind. It's got a legendary payoff. Legendary.
It's fantastic.
Oh, I gotta watch.
I don't even like
those. I never even heard of this. Okay.
And then the last one, I didn't really. Again, I'm watching documentaries about things I don't care about, but I didn't really care much about Conan O'Brien. But they did Conan O'Brien Can't Stop, and I watched this, I don't know, 10 years ago now, but I think it's free on YouTube. I just saw actually, so it's accessible.
Oh, cool.
But Conan O'Brien Can't Stop. It's just a documentary of the tour he did whenever between the time he got kicked off the Tonight Show and how he wasn't able to appear on television for like a set amount of time, and about the tour he did and about how he supported his people and everything. It's not really like anything revelatory, but it's just a really interesting piece on Conan O'Brien and like his work ethic and just the stuff that surrounded that. So, and the industry. There's some industry stuff in there too. So I would definitely recommend that one as well. And I love documentaries, and I would love shoot me a message on like DM me on Twitter or something in Discord if you have. I don't just want any documentary. I want the best documentary you can bring me. I'd love to hear about it.
Oh man, you're going to be in for it now.
Sorry, I can just block people. It's fine.
All right, my friends. Dig, let's go to you for the final topic. I thought this would be a fun exit, and I know the exact story I'm going to tell too. So let's get into it.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really relieved that you brought up King of Kong, because that would have been an egregious oversight, not to mention.
That's the best video game documentary ever. I mean,
it might be one of the best documentaries ever, because it has one of the greatest villains in it. I wanted to fight Billy Mitchell for 20 years. I never wanted to fight anybody in my life. I wanted to bring that guy. I wanted to find him and kill him. Like
he's a piece of shit. He's an obvious piece of shit.
Shithead.
Yeah, he's an obvious, just complete trash.
Like a legit villain. Like he's not just playing a part. Like he's just an evil dude,
Yeah.
I'm so glad we remembered that. Okay, so we don't have to spend long on this one. I'm really the most interested in hearing about my Brady Bunch cohorts here, but I'll set the tone for you guys. So I want to talk about our most embarrassing moment, or moments if you want to make it plural. Now, I'll start by saying I do want to eventually do a topic centering around, I've never told this to anybody specifically. That doesn't have to apply to today. But what the story I think I'm going to tell you guys does apply to this as well, because I don't think I've ever told anybody, another living soul, about this. Although there has to be people who knew what was going on. So I'll explain. And actually, I have 2 stories revolving around peeing in my pants, but I'm just going to tell the one today because this one is insane. And also, I'm a little worried about sharing this because some of these people I haven't seen in a long time, and I'm going to see them twice this year.
Oh, at the weddings?
At the weddings. But I have to tell because it's too good. All right. So I was in my early to mid 20s. I remember the time must have been I had just moved back from living in LA for like 6 or 7 months. So I was back in New York. And when I came back to live in New York, I was working in Manhattan, but I was living on Long Island, in Western Long Island, at our grandma's house. And one night, now a lot of my dad's family still lived in that specific area. That was my maternal grandma's house, but a lot of my dad's family still lived out in that area of Long Island. And my dad still lived out east on Long Island. And my Aunt Barbara, who's my dad's sister, was having a big get together at her house nearby. And I think it was on like a Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. And I hadn't seen, we were notoriously not as close to my dad's side of the family as my mom's side. And at that time, I hadn't seen my aunts or my uncles on my dad's side for years. It had been at least 4 or 5 years. I hadn't seen anybody. My Aunt Barbara was having this event at her house. It might have been for our cousin Kerry's 16th birthday, if I'm not mistaken. And Kyle, I don't know, you could remind me if you were there or not. So
yeah, I mean, I'm Carrie and I are almost the same age, so I must have been there.
I think you were. I think it was me, you, and Dad. I think you and Dad picked me up at Grandma's. We drove to Aunt Barbara's, which was only a couple of towns away, and they were having a big. It was warm weather. It might have been. It was either late in the spring or in the summertime. Aunt Barbara had and Uncle Steve had a beautiful house, and they were having this event. Some people were sitting inside, some people were sitting outside, out on the patio, but all my dad's sisters, and I think Uncle Mike and Aunt Julie, my dad's brother.
Uncle Mike's a listener, by the way.
Uncle Mike is a listener, so Uncle Mike will appreciate this story. Shout out to Uncle Mike.
Now we have 2 Uncle Mikes. Uncle Mike.
Uncle Michael.
This is Uncle Michael, my dad's brother, who we see much less. Typically, when we bring up Uncle Mike, we're talking about the uncle we see more often, who's Uncle Mike.
That's Uncle Mike always, right? Yeah, this is Uncle Michael. But I think everybody was there, all the usual players.
I've been emailing with him, though, Uncle Michael. It's been
you
nice.
have?
Yeah, I've been corresponding with him. Yeah.
He doesn't want to talk to me?
He actually asked for your email address, and I gave it to him a few days ago, believe it or not. So.
Thanks, Uncle Mike. Thanks, Uncle Michael. But I'll see him. We'll be able to catch up soon. He'll definitely laugh at this. Hopefully he'll laugh at this story. But everybody was there. Everybody hadn't seen for a long time. Sorry, go ahead. I just robbed you and Allie of a bunch of gifts. But yeah, I think the statute of limitations has passed. I hope it has. Because I'm going in. I'm going all in on this.
I can see this. I'm wondering what this is.
I'm going on. This is insane. I still cringe at how embarrassing this is. And it's just the hopelessness, but I'll get there. So everybody was there, and it was always a little awkward seeing that side of the family, not because they weren't cool. They were always super cool to a person, but we just didn't see them a lot. So that, we had to like reestablish a rapport and break the ice. By the end of the night, it was always fine. Even as a kid, you developed a sense of comfort, but we didn't see them enough to really have that ongoing thing with them. So there was a little bit of that, but we were sitting around laughing and telling stories. I remember Dad and our Uncle Richard, who was a New York City police officer, were telling funny stories and stuff like that. And I was having beers and had to go pee. I got the dime-sized bladder when I start drinking. I've always had this.
Me too.
And went to Aunt Barbara's bathroom. Again, beautiful house in Manhasset, beautiful part of Long Island. Go in the bathroom. And now normally when this happens, I think this I'm talking to all you standing up peers out there, all the gents, right? Usually if this happens, you catch it and you're like, oh shit, you see a little sprinkle, you hit part of your belt, you're peeing, you hit part of your belt or your pant flap and you catch it and you're like, oh shit, clean it up. Well, apparently this happened to me and I didn't realize till I was done peeing. I looked down, I didn't get anything in the toilet bowl. I just completely peed the front of my pants. Completely. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know where my head was, but there was nothing. The toilet water was unfettered. All the pee was all over me. So I just went all in, like the entire, from my zipper to my knees, both legs was drenched. And I was wearing blue jeans, so it was a few shades darker than the rest. Like you could see I peed myself.
Yeah, like you pissed yourself.
Completely pissed myself in Aunt Barbara's bathroom. And I was like, what?
In the bathroom.
What am I going to do?
Yeah, in the bathroom, right. In the bathroom.
So, and then of course there's pee on the seat and there's a little pee on the floor or whatever. But mostly I just peed myself, my garments. Like my pants were completely
Your
soaked.
pantaloons.
All I was wearing was a t-shirt with a button-down plaid shirt, and that just covered my zipper area. So I had a good 10 to 12 inches of each leg that was just completely drenched. And I'm like, what am I going to do? There's nothing I could do. So I'm looking around, looking at the towels, and I'm trying to like assess the situation. Like, how am I going to dry this off? And also not look like I'm in the bathroom for 45 minutes taking a like hairy shit. I don't know why my mind went to that, but I was like, I don't want to be away too long. So I'm panicking. I'm like completely panicking. So I'm like, I can't use the towels. What am I going to do? I can't use the hand towels. Toilet paper is not going to cut it. So I look down, and there's one of those little bathroom carpets, right? It was light pink. I was like, all right, I think I could just do the like press and like just, I'm not going to take them off or anything. I'm just going to dry this with friction with this bathroom rug and put it back down. No one will be of the wiser. So I do this.
Oh, wow.
And I start, I'm panicking. I'm fucking freaking out. Like you got to understand, it's hilarious now, but at the time I'm completely distraught. Like, I'm like, there's no way out of this. So I'm drying my legs, and I'm doing this for like 30 seconds, and I take the thing and I turn the light pink carpet blue. It's blue. It's completely blue from my jeans.
Oh my God.
And I didn't make a dent. I didn't make a dent in the saturation of my clothes. So I'm like, my only respite, my only comfort was that it was nighttime. But, the house is well lit, and even the back patio is well lit. Like, you're going to see, I peed myself. There's no way around it.
And smell, maybe.
Oh, and plus stink, yeah. And plus I'm flop sweating all over the place. Now I'm drenched. I'm drenched everywhere because I'm just like freaking out. Like, if this happened at my grandma's house, I probably would have just came out and be like, look what happened. Everybody would laugh. But I can't do that with this side of the family. I don't know them that well, And they probably would have been cool about it, but I just wasn't comfortable with, So
they would be cool about it, but then they'd be like, remember when Dagan?
Now they're going to know about it. But I just had to come clean. I don't know if it's making me feel better or worse that I'm actually telling this story.
Wait, so what? So you left the rug like that?
So I couldn't use I was still soaked. Like, it didn't have an effect, but I already destroyed this carpet. So I'm like, I can't do it with both ends. So I put the carpet back and flipped it to the other side, which, by the way, was not reversible. It was just like rubbery underneath with a tag. So I'm like, but I can't flip it. You know what I mean? I can't put it down right side up. I obviously,
So you left. This is all right. Go on.
Yeah. So I had to leave the room. I did the best I could. I didn't want to do the same thing with the white towels in the bathroom because I would have just destroyed those with the dye from my jeans. So I flipped this rug. It's obviously flipped the wrong way. I do the best I can. I go back out there. I'm trying to walk with my arms in front of my legs, like in front of my thighs, so they don't see. And I don't remember if people were giving me like the thin eye, like, what the fuck? Like, my goal was just to get back to the patio table, sit down with my beer as quick as possible. So, focus wasn't on the lower part of my body. So I did. But I ended up going back to the bathroom again later in the evening, and somebody had flipped the rug back the right way. And it was, it wasn't like I stained it a little bit. It was like dark blue with the dye from my jeans. And it had to smell like me. It had to smell like So I'm sure they put two and two together. Not only put two and two together of this happened, but I'm sure they knew who it happened to because I was the odd man out. You know what I mean? Like, there was a great familiarity between everybody there except for me and Colin, basically. But Colin wasn't even old enough to drink, so it couldn't have been him, right? So that was the only relief I have in that situation is I saw I don't mean to celebrate not seeing that side of my family, but I've seen them very few times since then. At my sister's wedding, at our sister Dana's wedding, at my own wedding, maybe a few other choice times since this happened in my mid-20s. But I remember thinking by the time I left the house that night, and again, never verbalize this to anybody ever. Not even my dad. Like, Dad, guess what happened? Because I was flabbergasted. Like, I was completely just devastated by the whole thing. But I knew leaving the house that night that they knew I peed myself and then used Aunt Barbara's rug to try to clean it up. And I just remember, I don't know if anyone else brought it up to anybody else ever. Like, I don't remember. Well, let's say Uncle Steve was the one who found the bathroom rug like that. Did he say to Uncle Richard or Aunt Mary Ellen or,
like piss.
Uncle Hal at that time or Aunt Barbara or whatever, like, did Dagan piss himself and try to clean himself with our bathroom rug?
Wow, that's
so
interesting. That's a good one.
Apologies to everybody on our dad's side of the family, the Moriarty side of the family. I'll see you in May. Hopefully we're all a few beers deep by that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me. I think the only way it could have been more embarrassing is if somebody confronted me about it at the time. Like, dude, did you just pee yourself and all over Aunt Barbara's bathroom and your pants and try to clean it up with Aunt Barbara's stuff and then try to hide it? So that, I think that's even worse though. Like, not knowing, but kind of knowing, like they had to figure it out. Insane. I mean, really, like, talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm levels of fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
my favorite part of that story is that you didn't want them to think you were taking a shit in there, as if that was the most important thing. Was like, I don't want them to think I'm in here taking a shit.
Like, so
that is not possible.
Think about the different ways too that, and you're right, because think about the different ways that could have gone. Like, in a more comfortable situation, or you could have just gamed it out and been like, listen, this is, I'm done. Like, there's no way out of this, really. I'm just going to discreetly go tell Aunt Barbara that
just come
I
clean.
had a problem and get a change and maybe take a shower or whatever I have to do. And that's it. I mean, like,
I think that would have been worse. I think that would have been so much worse.
Dude, I don't know. It depends on what it's because, like, what you're saying is true. You're never going to know what the scuttlebutt about that was.
There had to be
that side of the family. Yeah, definitely.
I think you should ask him at the wedding.
Yeah, you should. I'm going to ask him.
They're way too cool, by the way. Like, they are cool people. Like, there's no way I should be giving them way more credit. Like, I definitely should have said, like, that would have been a discreet way to say it. Like, or I could have just done the whole party thing. Like, go outside the bathroom with my jeans in my hand, be like, yo, like, like, look what I did. I just tell, like, everybody. This way I don't have to worry about the rumor mill later. Like, Aunt Barbara and Uncle Steve acting cool about it, but then behind my back being like, what's going on?
Well, there's two possible outcomes right now. One is that they never realized what happened and they didn't piece it together. The other is that for the last 25 years, they've been secretly calling you Dagan the Pants Pisser.
Yeah. This doesn't smell like piss this time.
Yeah, exactly. The smell is not something I'm sure I thought of, which makes it so much worse. So much worse. And then apologies to Dad, because I rode home in your car that way. I wasn't telling Dad. I wasn't trying to tell Dad. I don't know what was going through my head that I would even tell Dad or you.
Did you roll the windows down?
Dad's been bombarded with so much smoke and fucking soot. He can't smell anything, probably. He probably wasn't. And I was probably there too. And I would remember that. I would feel like if you smelled like this.
My God.
But Manhasset to Mineola or Manhasset to Albertson's not very far.
No, that's true. And I did live. It's not like I was all the way out east, so I wasn't like bleeding down into Dad's upholstery or anything. Oh man, that's
good stuff.
Worst timing. Well,
that's the end of the episode.
Who would like to go next? Who has an embarrassing story? I set the tone.
Yeah,
this is
you want to go next?
I've been waiting for.
You go next. Micah, you go next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I cut out when you said the name, so I thought it was like he said somebody. Oh, okay. Dagan is just going to undo years of therapy with this one topic. I had to think, not because my life hasn't been full of embarrassing moments, but because I've largely repressed them. I have stuffed these down. And even as I was listening to Dagan's story, I remembered one that was better than what I had planned. Because like a very small one that I think about literally almost daily was in 4th grade. Everybody was playing Beyblades on the playground and I wanted to play, but it was that age where boys are like, no, we don't want girls hanging out here. So they were like, no, we don't want you to play. And as I was walking away, I was like, fine, forget you. And I tripped on a basketball as I was walking away. And just like the worst. But that's just one small facet of my life that haunts me.
That's
forever.
catastrophic for a kid.
It was pretty bad, but something worse happened the following year. I was at the eye doctor. I've had glasses since 3rd grade. I can't see for shit. And they had a dish. I completely forgot about this till Dagan was talking. They had a dish of candy out, and they had the new Starburst hard candies, which have since been recalled. You know why? Because kids choke on them.
Oh.
And I choked on a hard candy in the eye doctor waiting room, and my mom had to give me the Heimlich maneuver. I haven't thought about this in years. My mom had to give me the Heimlich in front of all these people, and my sister...
That's awesome.
I haven't thought about this in like a decade. My sister's standing there like panicking because I'm dying like right in front of her eyes. Like here's her little sister, her mom's like giving her the Heimlich. There's all these people in the waiting room. The eye doctor came out because he heard the commotion, and he comes out like what the hell is he gonna do about it? He's an eye doctor. And like my mom dislodges the candy, it flies out of my mouth, it lands on the carpet.
Yes.
Like it was horrible. It was like the worst thing. And then they had those candies like later. I mean, that whole thing happened. It was awful. Like just truly terrible. Micah's worst moment. Thanks, Dagan. And later, my teacher had a bowl of candy, and it was those Starburst hard candies. The unique thing about those candies is that they were like half domes. Like they were flat on the bottom and like domed.
Okay, I don't remember.
And I
those.
think that's what made them so easy to choke on. And they didn't sell them very long. Like those things were off the shelves within like a couple of years. And so my teacher, Mrs. Fields, wonderful lady, had a bowl of them. And like she was like, "Would you like a candy?" And I was like aghast. Like without even thinking about it, I panicked. I was like, "No." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And that just made it even worse because I didn't tell anybody at school that I choked on one of those candies, and like they had this whole thing at the eye doctor, and then I had to go back to that eye doctor.
I was
like,
going to ask
for years. Okay. Oh yeah, no, he was what was it, Dr. Nichols? Great guy, great eye doctor, but like we had to keep going there for years.
That's awful.
And I was a kid that choked in the waiting room. Like the lady would see me, it was like horrible.
That's so sad.
Like truly, yeah. No, I mean, it's really funny. But also because I'm fine. But yeah, no, that's got to be up there.
Micah, did you guys ever see I Think You Should Leave, the comedy series on Netflix?
Oh yeah,
one
skit very good.
Where the guy is at the restaurant table with his friends. The famous guy comes in, but he starts choking. But he doesn't. Yes. He's choking to death on food. But he wants to look cool in front of the famous person, so he just dies.
Yeah. Yeah, we love that show. Everyone in this company seems to love that show. Yeah. All right.
Good shit, Micah. Good shit.
You have more, Micah?
I mean, the other ones I had were like sad. You know, it's more of like, oh, this was embarrassing and just a horrific moment type thing. I will say, actually, I did have one very quick one. Was when I was first dating Colin, and the sink in our kitchen is this futuristic monstrosity. And I couldn't figure out hot versus cold. And it took me weeks. And Colin kept calling me a caveman, you know, because I would just stand in front of this sink. I would just stand there and stare at it, trying to remember hot or cold. Because it's not labeled. It's like up for hot, down for cold. But it took me weeks to figure it out. And like I would just
You actually didn't know how to turn it on. I mean, I thought that's what you were going to say.
Well, it was a weird thing. You got to go to the right. It's weird. It's a weird sink.
Yeah, I didn't pick out anything in this house. It's just the way the builders made it. They could have told me anything.
I would be standing there. Like I would be standing in front of the sink for like several seconds trying to figure out. He'd be like, "You know, okay over there, you caveman, you Cro-Magnon man." Like just he had these little zingers for me about being a Neanderthal. And that was a moment where I was like, if this was a Seinfeld episode, he's going to break up with me over this.
I know,
this relationship isn't going to survive.
She didn't know how to turn on the phone. Yeah, like this is a spec house, so like whatever the builders would have put in here is what I would have gotten. So I don't know that I would have picked that faucet out. Although I really do like that faucet quite a bit.
It's a nice faucet now. I understand it. I've learned.
You've adjusted to it. Sure.
All right, Ben, why don't you go?
Yeah, so this may actually end up being my most embarrassing moment because everybody's going to think I'm a liar and mock me. But I can't remember feeling embarrassed. And I know that sounds insane, especially as someone who very much lives in the past and thinks about things from a long time ago. But I was just like racking my brain when I saw Dagan's email come through, and I'm like, I can't think of anything. So of course, what do you do when you can't think of, like, I went and asked my wife, I'm like, hey, can you remember a time I've ever been embarrassed? She was like, what do you mean? And I said, like, I can't think of an embarrassing time. And she goes, I could write a book on my embarrassing times. And I'm like, well, help me think of things that you would have been embarrassed if they happened to you that happened to me. Because we've been married for 11 years. We've known each other longer than that. And I said, certainly there's got to be something you're remembering. Maybe I've just suppressed it, you know? And so she starts naming a couple things. And they were like I'm like, very mild things. And I'm like, I didn't care about that. That didn't embarrass me. I don't care about those people. What do I care? And she's like, well, has this ever happened to you? I'm like, no. She's like, well, has anybody ever like pulled down your pants in public? And I'm like, not that I can remember. And then like an hour later, she just pulled down my pants in front of, and like just in the middle of the house. And I looked at her, I'm like, like, you've seen me naked 100 times. Like, what? Hundreds of times. Why does that matter? Like, and so I just couldn't remember anything. So I knew I had to have a story that could have been somewhat embarrassing. And I remember being in like high school, and I went to a buddy's house, and I had to take a dump. And I don't even remember it being a particularly gnarly one, but of course the toilet gets plugged up. And of course there's no plunger anywhere in the bathroom. So I had to go out and ask him, which I didn't care. Like, we're just dudes hanging out at this guy's house. And I'm like, where's your plunger? And he's like, oh, I'll take care of it. And I was like, no, that would be embarrassing. I just need your plunger because of something that naturally happened in my body, like it happens to everyone's. But I guess I don't embarrass easily. And I looked at my wife and I was like, you know that meme of the guy, like the butterfly, and it's like, is this a butterfly? You know, like, I was like, is this autism? Is this autism? Like, is that why I'm not, like, is there something wrong with me that I just don't, like, I don't get the social norms that are supposed to be embarrassing? And she's like, yes. As a matter of fact, that is exactly what's happening. So I have no good example.
You just don't know
of a time when I've been embarrassed. There are things that I've done that I regret, but it's mostly because like I did something that was perceived as bad or was actually bad, and I didn't, was acting poorly or whatever. But I can't remember doing something or having something happen to me where it was embarrassing. Like I've fallen down the steps in front of people, I'm sure, but it wasn't embarrassing to me. I was just like, yeah, I slipped, I fell, whatever.
Right, I'm human.
There was one time that would have been embarrassing. I was at work, and where I worked, we had a bunch of cubicles, and we had like all the employees were around the edge of the room, and then we had a bunch of students that would come in for a couple hours a day, and they were in the middle of the room, and they were all in individual cubicles and everything too, and they would come in and make like calls and stuff to students because I was a recruiter. And one day I was just like walking across the room, and I just flat out fell to the ground. And I feel like I told her about that. I feel like that's something that would be embarrassing. But the reason I had a stroke in the like just walking across the room in the middle of the office.
Oh,
so like that wasn't embarrassing. That was terrifying.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't know. I guess I don't embarrass easily. I much more live in the past with regret than I do with embarrassment, I suppose. So there you go. Mock me and make this my most embarrassing moment that you think I'm lying. And then I'll have a story to tell next time.
Or maybe your most embarrassing moments is ahead of you. Think of that.
I mean,
yeah, that's a way to look at it.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Let's hope so.
I can.
He's like,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Micah.
no, I was just gonna say I'm very envious of that because that just brought up another memory of in middle school. I slipped and fell in front of my whole class because it was icy. So like we were going into homeroom, and I was like the last person walking into the building, slipped on a patch of ice, fell. Literally everyone saw it. Everyone saw it. My mom saw it from the car. Felt bad, bought me a candy bar and a card, and like dropped it off at school so I'd feel better.
Oh, that's nice.
But it was like I still think about it. Like these are just like the worst moments of my life, the things that keep me up at night. And Ben's like, yeah, I just fell down. It's like I wish I saw it as I just fell down, because for me it was like everyone saw me fall down, and it was
That's
horrible.
tough. That's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I guess when I talk about like, oh, have you ever fallen down in front of somebody or whatever? I'm like, yeah. But like, I don't know, maybe this is a dickish thing to say, but in my head, I'm like, well, in order to be embarrassed, I would have to care what those people think about me. And I don't. Like, Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, they've all fallen down in front of somebody too. Like, what's it? Why do I care? Doesn't
it's
matter.
very rational and self-assured.
Well, I will
like
say
that.
as I've gotten older, I've become embarrassed and even self-conscious of just less and less. Like I just don't even give a shit about the way I look or like my clothes. I'm like, I don't care. Like I go to the supermarket looking like a schlub. They can think whatever they want about me. I don't care. Like literally, Matt doesn't change my reality.
I never have to
bit.
see these people again.
Right. And even if I did, it's like, you can think what you want about me. You know,
Right.
It doesn't change the reality of my life one way or the other. I will say, so I've told so many of my embarrassing stories that I'm not gonna rehash any of them. You know, I've talked about shitting myself, talked about getting the shit kicked out of me, I've talked about a bunch of different things. But there's actually a story that happened recently, and Micah, you'll know about it. I'm going to tell it now. That happened when we tried to go to Taza Kitchen.
Oh.
When was that? November? When that happened?
Oh, I think November, December.
Yeah, something like that.
Must have been December. It was after we'd gone with Dagan.
Yeah, right. So there's this place called Taza that we actually went to with our siblings and significant others when Dagan was here, and you know, in the fall, we wanted to go back there, and so it's important to note that I don't eat as I noted earlier at all throughout the day. But if I don't stay hydrated, my stomach starts to get really sour towards the end of the day. And this typically happens after I work out. So I kind of just ride with it, and then we just go roll right into dinner and everything's fine. But it happened to have been a day when I did a hard workout. I was pretty dehydrated, and then we were getting ready to go to dinner, and I wasn't really feeling very well. And there was a key error. This place is probably 25 minutes away, and I forgot to bring a water. So like my stomach was getting more and more sour and fucked up. I was just sitting there and I was having a hard time, and I was like expressing it, but we just kept going and going and going to this place, right? Probably 10 minutes out, I asked her to pull over. I throw up. Like, all right. So this is just the beginning. Believe me. So I get out of the car and I throw up a little bit, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. And by the way, another important note is I don't throw up. I'm not a person who throws up. You know, there's some people that just don't throw up when they're sick. I don't throw up. I shit my brains out all the time, but I just doesn't. And if my stomach pain gets bad enough, I throw up. That's about the only time I throw up. And so this was notable. I was like, all right, I'm throwing up. It's bile. It's like, you know, my stomach's empty and I have no water or anything to kind of like get this going. And it was just a little bit of throw up. So I'm like, let's just keep going. All right. Cause we're like closer to the restaurant than we are there. And I'm like, I just need to eat. Like, I know I just feel like I need to eat. But what I hadn't realized was that I crossed some sort of event horizon where there was no going back. And so we get to the restaurant, we go in. I really like this place. We're going to go back soon. I really like this place. It's like Mexican, good cocktails. And so I'm like, we get right in there, seated. I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling a little flush, whatever. I tell the dude, I'm like immediately like, can we get like an order of like chips and salsa, like whatever. Let's just get, and they just bring out stuff real quick and waters. And I'm like downing water and eating these chips. Like just trying to eat the carnitas and like just trying to get stuff in my stomach. But I go to the bathroom like 3 times and I think I'm going to throw up each time I go. And then I come back out and I don't. And so at some point I tell Micah, I'm like, I'm not going to make it. Like I'm definitely fucked right now. Like I'm beyond the event horizon. It's not going to accept this food. I've done this in all weird way. My body's confused. And I'm like, here's my credit card, you know, settle the tab. I'm going to wait in the car. And so I literally just do this. They explain. And I think Mike had said something along the lines of like, I ordered an old fashioned and barely touched it, which is how she knew that I was like, because this place makes like awesome old fashions.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't into it.
Can't believe you ordered a drink.
Yeah. Well, my assumption was that I was going to nip this in the bud. Like,
yeah.
Get the water, get the chips. I really did feel like I was going to feel better in 10 minutes. I just thought I knew my body well enough. And I feel like usually I do.
Yeah.
But not this time. So she gets into the car and we begin to leave. And then 2 minutes after we leave, I just projectile vomit all over myself in the car.
Oh my God.
And like, so all of the water that I just drank, all of the chips, all of the like I was just shoving chips down my throat, all came out all over me, mostly me, the seat, the front, like the car, like, and we're 20 something minutes from our house.
Oh my God.
So we are literally in this position where, and you know, this is where I've known many reasons why Micah is very ride or die, but this is one of those reasons where I think people understand that like someone's got to be in control. Right. And I think I'm typically in control of things in my own life, but where it's like, now by the grace of God, you basically have to figure out what we're going to do here, you know, because I'm out. I'm like so fucked up. I'm covered in puke and puking more on myself until she finally pulls over and gets a bag for me to puke into. But at this point, it's just all over the place.
Holy
so
shit.
We're driving, we're hitting every fucking light on the way home. And
of course.
Yeah. And then, so ultimately, I mean, that's the story, is that we went to this place. I misread the situation, didn't have any water, let my stomach get soured to a point of no return, threw up before I went into the restaurant, went to the restaurant, started eating and drinking, and then left the restaurant immediately, threw up on myself on the way home. And then I get out of the car. So like I'm covered in, this is probably on our cameras, you know, or would have been. It's a long time ago. It's been deleted by now.
That's interesting.
But it's like, I'm just covered in shit and puke and literally walk, like kind of like get inside. The dogs are confused about what's going on. I just get inside our, like when you go inside our house, there's no windows or anything. So I just close the door and literally just take all of my clothes off. And then Micah puts it in the, like, you know, puts it in the laundry. I thought those clothes were done. I was like, but she saved them all. They're totally fine. Like they were just as if it never happened at all, which I appreciate. And then I just kind of shambled into the shower, and she went, it was at night. So she's out there cleaning the puke out of the car.
Oh, right.
And then the next day I'm out there like trying to clean up. It was gross. And we bought like a special cleaner and did all these things and ultimately like kind of solved the problem. The only remnants that are left are the baking soda, because like basically just covered. I read that if you just bomb it with baking soda, like literally just bomb the shit out of it.
Absorbs it.
And it literally will just go away, and it did. Like the smell just went away. And it's, I don't want to say it's like new, but the only remnants are like the powder. Like that's the reminder of this moment. And yeah, that happened, and I never told anyone about it. I mean, it was just a few months ago, but that was a pretty embarrassing time for me. And the only thing I was thinking was, there were two things I was thinking was, one, we forgot to lock the door and went back. So this added another minute or so and unsettled the time. And I wonder if we didn't pull over and I didn't do that. And all, in other words, I could have very well thrown up on myself in that restaurant.
In the restaurant.
I was probably within 2 minutes of doing that, and there was going to be no stopping it, because I like, it was happening. And yeah, so that ended up happening. It was a shame. I was so embarrassed and I was so sad. It was like one of the, because I kind of resonate with what Ben's saying, where I'm not typically very, I don't really give too much of a shit, and a little embarrassing things happen or whatever. I also don't interact with very many people, but I was truly embarrassed about that situation, because I was like, holy mother of God, like that was pretty bad.
Well, as a couple, was that your first sort of, I'm going to hold your head, cradle you for the toilet bowl type thing?
No. I have really bad stomach episodes that basically leave me in a puddle of sweat in the fetal position in the bathroom on a semi-regular basis.
So you've been through something that was compromising.
I think this was by far the worst thing ever. But yeah, like I'm basically screaming in pain when I'm shitting in those situations, and like sweating profusely and like totally just butt naked. Horrible. It's horrible.
You are ride or die, Micah. That's ride or die.
Yeah, so she is ride or die. Yeah.
And I'll say too that I have a phobia of vomit, because it's just one of those things. I am the person who hardly ever throws up. I can count on one hand how many times I threw up as a child. I've never, knock on wood, I've never had a stomach bug. Like I've never experienced that. The last time I threw up was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
So it's very rare for me. And I know I'm not usually good at dealing with it, but except for that situation of it's someone that you care about and you handle it. So it is like, for me, it is like the worst case scenario is that someone threw up, but it's one of those, well, this, like when Colin, he said, I'm so embarrassed. I was like, why? It's just me. Like, it's just me, you know,
Right.
It's just, and he was like, at one point he had said, he's like, oh, you know, people are going to find out. I was like, no one's going to find out. We're not going to tell anybody. And he was like,
20,000 or so.
Yeah,
but you know, that's the thing. It's like, well, now months later, I'm glad like that you're comfortable with it now, because I felt bad at the time of like, don't be embarrassed. Like, it's just me. Like,
well, it was just a complete like that. It's very rare for me. And that's why I like the shitting my pants story and all that in San Francisco and all. These things are funny because like I could have shit my pants many more times. I just got out of Dodge, like at the last moment. I remember being on the fucking subway in San Francisco and literally getting off at my friend Nate's stop and just running to his house and hoping he was home. And he was. I mean, I would have literally just shit myself right at his house, like right on the stoop, you know? So so yeah, this was like one of those, like, I am paralyzed. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do right now. I'm just in a driver's seat of a car covered in my own puke. And yeah, it was and it's what I always worry about with my stomach episodes, where I'm like, I could just be in the wrong place at the wrong time with this, man. It's going to be bad. You know, it's not that I'm going to shit myself, but I'm going to have like one of these episodes in a public bathroom, and it's not going to be good. It's really, really, really painful, and you have to ride it out. You know?
Yeah, that sucks.
Which was one of the things I was afraid of with Houston, because it is very much set on by stress. But nonetheless, yeah, that's the embarrassing story that came up. I mean, I have other embarrassing stories, but I think that one fit.
Well, you said everything's totally fine in the car. I'm curious when it gets really hot down there.
Well, yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Summer,
yeah,
if you'll find out.
So we already had some 80-degree days.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we did well, because literally as soon as it happens, we get Colin home. First thing I do is clean up the actual house, because the hallway was quite messy. Clothes and everything, I had to handle that. And then I immediately went out to the car and got as much as I could. We're Googling, it says baking soda. We just dumped baking soda on it, a whole box of it. And then the next day vacuumed it out. We bought the like special upholstery vacuum. So, and then we've had a couple 80-degree days, and it hasn't smelled. It is stained with the baking soda. Like the seats are like just white, kind of like there's just like this white like film on it that like I've tried and just can't get rid of. But otherwise, it seems fine.
Well, that was what I was going to say. It was basically just the seat and like a little bit of the rug in front. And in my mind, and I was looking, I was like, we'll just get it. We have to just get a new seat, you know. Like, and it wasn't even that expensive actually to do. But we ended up figuring it out, because
that's a good thought.
I was very worried about that, and I'm very sensitive about that stuff. Like, I wouldn't be able to be around that smell. I wouldn't be able. So I'm confident that we've gotten it. But I guess, and other people have been in the car and they don't know the story. So.
Literally, we didn't tell anyone, and no one that was in the car was like, smells weird in here, or made a face, you know.
Yeah, maybe they
dad,
just wouldn't say. I don't know, but yeah,
I'm very much anti-puke. I can't handle it. I don't think of myself as having a weak stomach, but like, I'll handle anything else. I've cleaned out grease traps in restaurants before. But if somebody pukes, it's like that episode of The Office where like Dwight eats a boiled egg and Pam pukes and then everybody pukes. I'm everybody, like, or, you know, if there's puke, I can't handle it. So like having the kids and everything, I'm sorry, this is one instance where I just cannot do it.
That's your limit.
I can't. I mean, like if they break their kneecap open and there's blood and bone everywhere, I can handle that. You know, if I got to change some diapers, no problem. They even pretend to puke, I'm done. I'm out.
That's funny, dude. Can you imagine being like an elementary school janitor? That would be, because you're dealing with it on a weekly basis. And those are strangers. Right? Those are strange kids.
That's part of why I stopped pursuing being a teacher. I originally wanted to be a preschool teacher.
Oh my God.
Not only did I find out I don't really like kids that much, but then they were just constantly vomiting. And I was just like, it's one of those things of like, I'll handle the situation, but my hands are shaking the whole time. Like, I'm cleaning it up, I'm doing the thing, but my hands are shaking.
Yeah.
And then later that night, the sounds haunt me. Like, it was, you know, the night that happened, I couldn't sleep because my brain just was replaying it over and over. It took like probably 2 weeks for me to stop hearing the sound of it happening.
You were scarred.
And then to finally sleep again. So it's a problem for me. I handle it. I'll never shy away from it if someone I love, you know, needs help. But it's one of those, it's going to leave me a bit shell-shocked after. And I probably won't sleep while I just picture it over and over in my mind.
Let me ask you guys this before we go out, because I know we've been long on this, but I have this fear, right? You talk about that cliche of like having that dream of being in your underwear in grade school or whatever. But I suspect that it could get worse for me, even worse than the Aunt Barbara incident, because I have this one fear. I've mentioned it at least once before on a podcast, but I have this real palpable fear. I don't know where it comes from, that I'm going to walk around inadvertently with my wiener hanging out of my pants zipper. I just have this thing. I don't know what it is. I just know eventually this is going to happen to me because I dread it. I'm constantly checking my zipper. Like, it's like a real problem. I just know one day I'm going to walk into the supermarket with little Herb flapping around And I'm also wondering, like, it's my worst fear. So I don't know how it would happen practically because I wear boxer briefs and stuff. So logistically, it would be really hard. It would be really hard for it to happen. But yeah, I have a real tangible fear of this. And I just feel like it's going to eventually happen and I can't stop dreading it. And it's going to be I realize like it's like a compulsion. Like I'm constantly, I know my zipper's zipped up, but I have to check it. And
I do that all the time.
How does this never happen? Like, how are you never in like a Pep Boys or like anyway? And with some dude, he doesn't realize his little dome's hanging out. Like, why is this not a thing? Like, it should be a pretty common mistake.
Well, you don't have to worry about it with your micro penis. So don't worry about it. It's not going to fit.
No one's going to see it anyway.
All right. We got to go. It's time to go. We've been going on for a long time. Not that I really mind. I don't really care.
Good topic. Speaks of good topics. You guys came with some good topics today.
Yeah, I thought we had some nice topics today. Thank you guys for your time today. Dig, let's go around the horn one more time. Closing comments.
You know what? I just want to say with your social media thing, or just unplugging, Instagram has been an adventure for me because that was really my first foray into social media. And I adopted Twitter once we started podcasting. And I actually enjoy Twitter. I keep it real positive and light on Twitter. I think I know how to navigate Twitter, but Instagram is an interesting one for me because it started out as inspiration. And that's one of the things where if I'm plugged in too long, it could kind of degrade down into intimidation or discouragement. And that's where I realized, like, I enjoy the artwork. I enjoy my colleagues, animation, character design, whatever other artists are on there. But that's when I realized I got to kind of adopt some sort of balance with it. You know what I mean? That's really what I was thinking of when you were talking about social media and really how I got into social media for being something positive. You want to just keep it positive, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's where it's the Wild West for me. Like, how can I make it work for me without it going, dark, like walking around with my little wee hanging out of my zipper,
Yeah. Take it easy with that. Micah, closing comments.
I completely forgot to mention McDonald's breakfast, and I would be remiss to not say McDonald's breakfast, of course, and like Dunkin' Donuts, but McDonald's breakfast. No, not their shitty pancakes. No, we're talking about a sausage egg biscuit,
that's good.
Sausage egg McGriddle, hash browns. But
it.
McDonald's breakfast was always a treat, and it's still something I treat myself to every now and again. If I have to go to the doctor to get a shot, which I hate, stuff like that, the treat is McDonald's breakfast. So shout out to McDonald's because you can't talk about breakfast food without bringing up their spectacular menu.
Yeah, shout out to hotcakes, no doubt. I mean, I love the McDonald's hotcakes. I've always loved the McDonald's hotcakes with the sausage patty on top. You put the butter little things they give you on there and the little thing of syrup that's been the same since the 80s. I love that shit. That shit's good. I used to eat that all the time when I used to Postmate McDonald's in California. Anyway, Ben, closing comments.
Dagan talking about things that are irrational, like his wiener hanging out without intending to, made me think about the fact that one time we were walking across I was in Cincinnati, we were walking across this bridge and my wife goes, do you ever, when you're walking across a bridge, just like think about be afraid that you might jump off? And I was like,
it's an intrusive thought.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I do
She's
that.
like, what would happen if I jumped off? And I'm like,
shit all the time.
are you depressed? And she's like, no, I just wonder, what would happen if I accidentally jumped off? I'm like, how would you So anyway, that made me think of that. And I'm really hungry for eggs and toast now. And it's about the time I normally eat. So I think I'm going to do that.
Have at it. Yeah, I have intrusive thoughts all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
I do too, but not about accidentally or on purpose committing suicide without being wanting to.
No,
I definitely half of them are about me hurting myself.
It's like I'm chopping an onion and I'm like, what if I just cut my finger off?
Right, exactly.
Those are the intrusive thoughts. I'm driving down the street. What if I hit that old man?
I totally get it. And it's important to know, because I say this too, and I say this as a qualifier with my psychiatrist too, because they ask about, are you suicidal or anything? I've literally never been suicidal. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking is simply about the idea of what if I just fucking killed this person?
It's what if.
Yeah. I think about that shit all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about weird things, but I don't know. Anyway.
No, it's literally like the dog, you're watching the dog go potty and you're like, what if I just picked it up and ate it? Just what if?
I think about
Just
like
what
what would happen if my parents died tomorrow. I don't think about what if I eat dog shit, Micah. Come on.
Well, you don't have intrusive thoughts, Ben.
Oh, Ben, that's
Apparently
interesting.
not.
Ben, did you ever think, oh, what if I yell out in church? What if I yell fuck right now in the middle of mass? You never thought that?
Ben,
No.
say the N-word
That's
right
so
now.
funny.
You know what's funny, Colin? I did just think, what if I accidentally said the N-word when he asked that? So maybe I do have.
That's one of the. I mean, I've had that kind of intrusive thought for sure. Like that's that,
Intrusive
not because
thought.
you want to. That's the whole point. Is the entire idea of the intrusive thought is that you cannot control it.
Yeah,
Like,
where
it's
the-
not like
Please
you're-
don't
Yeah.
say the N-word on a podcast, or I will not have a job.
Yeah,
Okay.
I won't. Probably won't have a wife either. Okay.
that is a good one.
All right, my friends. Well, that was fun. That was a great episode. More than 3 hours. Good luck, Ben, in editing this one. I think it'll be fine. We're pretty clean.
We don't edit the show, so it should be great.
We don't edit this one. That's right. Oh, yeah.
It still
perfect.
takes me like an hour to get everything together, but it's way better than 4 tracks. That would be a 7-hour edit. So
Cool. All right, great.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, don't do
Yeah.
anything. We appreciate all of you out there, and thank you for your love, kindness, and support of all things Last Stand Media on Patreon, laststandmedia.store for merch, etc. You know the drill. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Sorry, Aunt Barbara. I should bring her a bathroom rug.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.